Chapter 933. Time fleeted by and quickly passed by. 7 days later, the 9 Dragons Pearl array was finally fully formed. As the golden radiance gradually faded away, the world seemed to have returned to the past as if nothing had happened. However, Taoist Zixuan, the Taoist nun who had been staying outside 9 Dragons Island, was well aware that the 9 Dragons Pearl array still existed. Furthermore, it had been crazily absorbing the world energy from all directions for 7 days, causing the array's power to reach a terrifying level. "It's a bit strange, Master." On the bow deck, a girl in a fluttering white dress frowned as she stared at the 9 Dragons Island in front. Taoist Zixuan opened her eyes and slightly tilted her head, asking, "What's so strange about it?" "I have a feeling that the scene in front of us is slowly turning blurry, Master," said the girl. "Also, listen to the sounds around us. There used to be some sounds coming from the island, but now there's only the sound of the sea. There's no sound of the waves hitting the shore anymore." Taoist Zixuan's expression slightly changed. She released her divine sense and quickly scanned the area in front of her. Her face turned pale and she coughed up a mouthful of blood. Just as her divine sense touched the invisible barrier, it was as if it had encountered a monster that could devour divine sense. It swallowed her divine sense in one gulp. Cough, cough. Taoist Zixuan coughed up 2 more mouthfuls of blood and looked at the island in front of her in disbelief. She could vaguely sense that the 9 Dragons Island in front of her was turning blurry and there was no sound coming from it anymore. 10 minutes later, the 9 Dragons Island under Taoist Zixuan's and the others' observation was getting more and more blurry before it finally completely disappeared from their sight. Taoist Zixuan used her spiritual sense to observe and was sure that the 9 Dragons Island still existed, but she could no longer see it with her naked eyes. There was nothing else in front of her except the boundless sea. "Master!" the girl called out hesitantly. Taoist Zixuan turned around and bitterly said, "Don't worry. I'm fine. It's just that there's an extremely powerful array master who has arranged an unparalleled array around 9 Dragons Island that enveloped the entire island. Even with my ability, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to see through this place if I didn't know in advance that 9 Dragons Island is in front of us. Remember, once we land on 9 Dragons Island, don't easily provoke the people on the island." The girl said, "Master, you are an expert at the middle stage of the Gold Core realm. Even if the person who set up the formation on this island is very powerful, he is only good at it. In terms of cultivation, I'm afraid he can't be compared with you." Taoist Zixuan shook her head and said, "We don't know who this island master is, so we shouldn't jump to conclusions so easily. Moreover, even if the other party's cultivation is inferior to mine, he has such profound attainments in formations. Once he activates this super formation, I'm afraid he can easily kill me." Suddenly, Taoist Zixuan and her 4 disciples suddenly saw a portal appear out of thin air in front of them. Through the portal, one could clearly see the scenery of 9 Dragons Island inside. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One figure after another shot out from the door like lightning. The first to come out were Taoist Zixuan's 6 disciples, followed by Tan Xiao, Mo Al, and Mo On. "Master!" Jin Chanzi, Jin Xingzi, and the others knelt on one knee in the air and respectfully called out. Taoist Zixuan gently raised her jade-like fingers and lifted them up along with 6 streams of qi. She then nodded with satisfaction and said, "You and your brothers did a great job. You must eliminate evil people for the sake of the people. Furthermore, you inadvertently came to 9 Dragons Island and guided me to discover the powerhouses in the cultivation world. That's a great merit. I'll naturally reward you well when we return to the sect." "Thank you, Master." Jin Chanzi and the others smiled. Seeing Taoist Zixuan's gaze, Tan Xiao cupped his fists and smilingly said, "Senior, please forgive me for my neglect in visiting 9 Dragons Island. I've already ordered someone to brew some fragrant tea and I'm waiting for you to come to the island." Taoist Zixuan slightly bowed and said, "Are you the island master of 9 Dragons Island? May I know your name?" "My name is Tan Xiao, and I'm also the island master of 9 Dragons Island," said Tan Xiao with a smile. Taoist Zixuan asked again, "May I know which sect Taoist Tang belongs to, and which senior expert in the cultivation world is your master?" Since we're fellow Taoists from the cultivation world, maybe I know my master. Tan Xiao chuckled and said in accordance with Jin Chanzi's previous words, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, senior. I don't belong to any sect or sect. I just happened to obtain the inheritance of a senior in the cultivation world by chance and officially stepped on the path of cultivation. Taoist Zixuan looked surprised, but she didn't ask which senior Tan Xiao had obtained the inheritance of. Such a matter was a taboo in the cultivation world. Furthermore, Tan Xiao was very young, but he gave her a faint sense of threat. She even found that she couldn't see through Tan Xiao's cultivation level. However, she could see the cultivation level of the two people behind Tan Xiao. They were both at the foundation establishment stage. Taoist Tang, did you arrange the island's protective array? Asked Taoist Zixuan again. That's right. Tan Xiao nodded and said, I did arrange it. It's just that it took me nearly half a month to set it up, consuming a huge amount of materials and consuming a lot of my energy. I'm afraid I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble if my cultivation level was higher. Taoist Zixuan sighed and said, Taoist Tang, being able to arrange such a peerless array is already an amazing ability in the current cultivation world. I firmly believe that among all the cultivators on Earth, there's absolutely no one who's better than you in the field of formations. You must be joking, senior. Tan Xiao chuckled and said, I only know a little bit about arrays, so it's hard for me to enter the Grand Hall. You've been staying outside for 7 days, senior. Now that the 9 Dragons Islands array has been opened, do you still want to talk to me here? Taoist Zixuan couldn't help laughing and said, It's because this island's protective array you arranged shocked me too much, so I can't wait to learn more about it. I hope Taoist Tang won't take offense to it. Then we'll have to trouble you. Please, with a faint smile, Tan Xiao led Taoist Zixuan and the others to fly into the array portal and quickly landed on the square outside the palace. The moment Taoist Zixuan entered 9 Dragons Island, she immediately noticed that the number of guards on the island had increased a lot compared to before. She could see hundreds of guards stationed everywhere in her line of sight. What was most inconceivable to her was that almost all of these guards were cultivators. Although the aura they exuded wasn't very strong and the strongest among them was only at the foundation establishment stage, the scale of hundreds of people still shocked her. It should be known that it was extremely difficult to nurture a martial cultivator. Just the investment of cultivation resources alone was a huge sum. But there were so many cultivators here, and each and every one of them exuded a faint murderous aura, indicating that they were ruthless characters who had killed countless people. Taoist Zixuan followed Tan Xiao and walked for more than 10 meters toward the palace's entrance before she stopped and asked, Taoist Tang, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask it. Please ask. Tan Xiao also stopped. The number of cultivators on this island is far beyond what I imagined, said Taoist Zixuan. You said that you obtained some kind of inheritance and embarked on the path of cultivation, so what's going on with them? Did you personally cultivate them? That's right. They were all trained by me. Tang Xiao nodded. Taoist Zixuan slightly furrowed her brows and said, As far as I know, the cultivation resources on Earth are scarce and the heaven and earth spiritual energy is thin. I'm afraid it won't be easy to cultivate so many cultivators, no? Furthermore, according to my observation, most of them are at the qi refining stage, but some are at the foundation establishment stage. I'm afraid the investment of such resources must be huge, no? Tan Xiao pondered for a moment and slowly said, This is a private matter of mine, so it's not convenient to disclose it to outsiders. But since Senior has asked, then there's no harm in telling you. The resources on Earth are indeed scarce, and the heaven and earth spiritual energy is also very thin. But I also obtained some cultivation resources when I obtained the inheritance. On top of that, I'm a businessman in the secular world, so I have money and good connections. Thus, I was able to obtain a lot of precious herbs by spending a lot of money. It's not a problem to cultivate my subordinates to this level in a short period of time. But what? Asked Taoist Zixuan curiously. With the increasing number of cultivators under me, the cultivation resources I have are in short supply, said Tan Xiao with a forced smile. I won't be able to do anything if it goes on like this. In fact, The reason why I left your 6 disciples on Nine Dragons Island and even waited for your arrival is that I hope to find a way to obtain cultivation resources. Taoist Zixuan raised her brows and said, You mean, you want to get cultivation resources from my whole unitary sect? Or do you want to make a deal with me? You're right, Senior. Tan Xiu smiled and said, That's exactly what I'm planning to do. If Senior can provide us with some cultivation resources, I'm willing to exchange them with something else. Or rather, exchange them with your whole unitary sect. Let's go inside and talk, Taoist Tang, said Taoist Zixuan with a faint smile. Tan Xiu also smiled and continued to lead Taoist Zixuan and the others into the palace. He then personally led them to the spacious living room on the 2nd floor. As tea, snacks, and fruits were served, Tan Xiu then said with a smile, I rarely have any dealings with fellow Taoists in the cultivation world, so I don't know how they entertain their distinguished guests. I hope Senior can forgive me if there's anything lacking in my hospitality. You don't need to be so polite, Taoist Tang, said Taoist Zixuan with a casual smile. I'm a straightforward person who doesn't like to beat around the bush. I'm actually very interested in fellow Taoist Tang's suggestion. Chapter 934. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with Taoist Zixuan's words at this moment. He originally had some plans after learning about the whole unitary sect's situation, which was to establish a relationship with them as much as possible. If possible, he wanted to get some cultivation resources from this sect that had been passed down for thousands of years. As a matter of fact, the Everlasting Feast Hall didn't lack cultivation resources at present, and it wouldn't lack cultivation resources for the next year. However, he planned to form an army of cultivators and train a large number of children, so the consumption of cultivation resources in the future would be astronomical. Therefore, the more cultivation resources he had, the better it would be for him. Tan Xiu could sense the aura of a righteous sect from Jin Chanzi's group of 6, as well as Taoist Zixuan in front of him. After observing them in secret, he found that they didn't seem to be people with bad intentions. Therefore, there shouldn't be any problems in making a deal with the whole unitary sect. Senior Zixuan, since you're interested in the deal I proposed, then I need to ask you something. How many cultivation resources have your whole unitary sect accumulated for thousands of years? Can they meet my needs? Asked Tan Xiu seriously. It seems that Taoist Tang's appetite is quite big, said Taoist Zixuan with a faint smile. You just said that our whole unitary sect has been passed down for thousands of years, so it's only natural that we have accumulated a lot of cultivation resources. However, what kind of benefits can you give us to get a lot of cultivation resources from our sect? Tan Xiu spread his palm and an ancient book suddenly appeared in it. He looked at Taoist Zixuan's curious eyes and asked, May I know the cultivation technique of the whole unitary sect can help you break through to the spirit formation stage? Taoist Zixuan's expression shifted. She pondered for a while and then said, To be honest, the most important cultivation technique of the whole unitary sect can help us break through to the spirit formation stage. We don't have any spirit formation stage experts at present, but we do have nascent soul stage experts. The cultivation technique in this ancient book in my hand can help you break through to the great ascension stage, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. I'm sure that this cultivation technique is much more profound than the cultivation technique of your whole unitary sect. Also, let me tell you something. If someone from your sect can break through to the great ascension stage in the future, I'll give you a cultivation technique that can help you cultivate up to the crossing tribulation stage. What? Taoist Zixuan had been cultivating for hundreds of years and had an extremely firm mind. But when she heard Tan Xiu's words at this moment, she still stood up in shock with a look of disbelief on her face. Deshang stage? Tribulation stage. How could there be such a profound cultivation technique on Earth now? Tan Xiu said, I'm right. The cultivation method in my hand can indeed be practiced to the Deshang stage. I also have a cultivation method for the crossing calamity stage. If your whole unitary sect wants it, I need to know how many cultivation resources you can take out to satisfy me. Taoist Zixuan stared fixedly at the ancient cultivation book in Tan Xiu's hand. If it wasn't for the fact that she wasn't sure she could subdue Tan Xiu on Nine Dragons Island, she would have snatched the cultivation book right away. If it was really as Tang Xiu said, that this cultivation art was many times more profound than the highest cultivation art of their whole unitary sect, then it was simply a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them. It was a treasure that was hard to come by even in a millennium. Taoist Tang, this matter is of great importance, so I need to discuss it with the elders of my sect. Tan Xiu put away the cultivation book and smilingly said, "No problem. I don't have many cultivation resources now, but I have plenty of time. However, I'm someone who doesn't like to waste time. How long will it take for me to know how many cultivation resources your sect is willing to offer?" 7 days. "Please give me 7 days at most," said Taoist Zixuan without hesitation. "I'll leave this place now and return to my sect to discuss it with the elders. I'll be back here 7 days later with the amount we can afford. But I hope you won't deceive me, Taoist Tang, else it won't be good for either of us if you incur the wrath of the elders of my sect." "If so, I'll be waiting for the good news from you, Senior Zixuan," said Tan Xiu with a smile. Suddenly, "Taoist Tang, I heard from my disciple that you have a profound attainment in the art of controlling lightning," said Taoist Zixuan. "I'm also an expert in this field. I wonder if we can have a spar?" "Since Senior Zixuan is so interested, let's go to the sea outside the island and exchange some pointers," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I don't want this newly built Nine Dragons Island to be destroyed by our spar." Alright. Shortly after, Tan Xiu opened the portal of the island's protective array and left with Taoist Zixuan's group. They then appeared on the sea several kilometers away from Nine Dragons Island. Standing in the air, Taoist Zixuan looked at Tan Xiu, who was tens of meters away from her, and said with all seriousness, "Please be careful, Taoist Tang." Rumble. As her voice faded away, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the sky. Immediately after, a black cloud appeared and lightning bolts struck down from it, enveloping hundreds of square meters below. The lightning bolts were very fast and numerous, but each one was very thin. The thickest one was only as thick as a thumb. A mocking look flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he watched Taoist Zixuan cast a lightning spell. He was thinking about whether he should go all out or not. He needed to give Taoist Zixuan a deep deterrence. Otherwise, he was afraid that she would look down on him and not pay enough attention to him in the next deal. However, his lightning spell was too mysterious. Not to mention that his current cultivation was only equivalent to the late stage of golden core. Even nascent soul or spirit formation experts might not be able to cast it. The more he revealed, the more envious Taoist Zixuan would think that his lightning imperial art was powerful, and she might do something bad to him. Forget it. I'll just use the power I showed to deal with the experts of the Celestial Wizard clan. By the time Tan Xiu made up his mind, Taoist Zixuan's performance had already ended. His figure soared into the sky and appeared hundreds of meters above the sea. He spread his arms wide and the scattered dark clouds in the sky once again condensed. Moreover, the number of dark clouds condensed this time was much more than when Taoist Zixuan cast her lightning spell. The range of the dark clouds covering the sky was also much larger than when Taoist Zixuan cast her lightning spell. The dark clouds were densely packed with lightning and thunder. Looking up at the sky, one would feel as if they were looking at the end of the world. Lightning bolts were faintly discernible in the clouds, and the rumbling of thunder was enough to shake one's eardrums. Taoist Zixuan retreated hundreds of meters and looked up at the scene in the sky with her mouth agape. Her body trembled slightly. She had never dared to imagine such a terrifying scene before. Not to mention that it was a phenomenon caused by someone casting a lightning spell. How did he do it? Just how profound was the imperial thunder technique that he was cultivating? This phenomenon alone is already beyond my expectation. I wonder how terrifying it will be if it erupts. Lightning Sea. Standing 100 meters above the ground, Tan Xiu suddenly raised his head and roared. Lightning bolts as thick as an arm suddenly broke free from the clouds like countless falling meteors, falling from the night sky and striking the sea in the distance. The lightning covered a radius of half a kilometer. Whether it was the number, speed, or explosive power, it was more than 10 times stronger than what Taoist Zixuan cast. The lightning strikes lasted for a full minute. When the lightning stopped, the dark clouds in the sky dispersed and the rolling thunder also stopped. A large number of dead fish corpses floated on the surface of the sea within a radius of half a kilometer. As time passed, more and more dead fish corpses floated up. Tan Xiu flew to the front of Daoist Zixuan and looked at the dull expression on her beautiful face. Then he lightly smiled and said, "Senior Zixuan, it seems that I'm better at controlling lightning spells than you." "Ah, that's right. I heard from your disciple, Golden Cicada, that you're very obsessed with lightning spells. If you want to learn more profound lightning spells from me, we can make a deal." Daoist Zixuan came back to her senses and looked at the faint smile on Tan Xiu's face. A look of admiration rose inside her heart. She wouldn't be afraid of Tan Xiu if the two of them were to go all out in a fight. After all, lightning spells were not the only thing she could do. But in this regard, she was convinced by Tan Xiu. "I'll remember your words today, Daoist Tang. I hope you won't go back on your words when I bring you a lot of cultivation resources in the future," said Daoist Zixuan seriously. "Don't worry." Tan Xiu nodded. "I'll never go back on my words." Half a day later, Tan Xiu returned to Nine Dragons Island, whereas Daoist Zixuan took her 10 disciples and left on the liner. Therefore, no one from the whole unitary sect was left on Nine Dragons Island. All of them were now Tan Xiu's subordinates. Outside the palace, just as Tan Xiu returned, Mo On appeared in front of him and reported with a solemn expression, "Boss, we just received news from the 14th island. They found 2 liners in the sea not far from them. Those 2 liners are sailing towards us." "That's right. Judging from the direction Daoist Zixuan's group left in, they should be meeting those 2 liners in 2 hours. "Can you confirm their identities?" asked Tan Xiu with a frown. "I can't be 100% sure, but according to the report from our men on the 14th island, some of them are very similar to the 2 old geezers from the Celestial Wizard clan we killed before," said Mo On. "If they're really experts from the Celestial Wizard clan, then we'll be able to have some fun." Tan Xiu sneered. "Order the helicopters to take off. All experts at the Foundation establishment stage are to board the helicopters and fly to the 14th island in 10 minutes. It seems like the battlefield I need has finally arrived." "I'll carry out your order right away, boss," said Mo On. "But our men will suffer casualties once a battle breaks out here. We're in dire need of manpower now, and I'm afraid that if we lose too many men then, it's the quality of soldiers that matters most." Tan Xiu sneered. "What's there to be afraid of? Don't you understand that only by fighting and killing can you sharpen yourself and make your cultivation and combat experience progress by leaps and bounds?" Chapter 935. Back when Tan Xiu planned to form an army of cultivators, he already had some concerns. After all, it was an era of peace, completely different from the cruel living environment in the immortal world. True cultivators, on the other hand, could only walk on the edge of life and death, growing up accompanied by blood and slaughter. Only then could they grow stronger and eventually become a true powerhouse. But now, when he realized that he had provoked a very dangerous race, not only did he not feel the slightest fear, but it also made him excited and faintly look forward to the upcoming battles. Boom, 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 as the propellers roared, the blue sky and white clouds scattered everywhere. The figures of the helicopters galloping through the raging azure sea were 10 helicopters, heading for Barren Island number 14 in the southeast. "Venerable Lord, those Celestial Wizard clansmen are nothing but ants in my eyes. Why do you need to go through so much trouble? Do you want to deploy troops to meet them? I alone am enough to slaughter them all." Ji Qimei calmly sat next to Tan Xiu. Her eyes were full of indifference, apparently not caring about the threat brought by the Celestial Wizard clan. "I have many ways to destroy this clan if I want to," said Tan Xiu calmly. "But I need to train the troops. Only the enemy can make our everlasting feast halls people grow and have the combat experience of fighting experts." Ji Qing suddenly understood and asked with a puzzled expression, "I really don't get it, Venerable Lord. Why do you want to form an army of cultivators on Earth? Not to mention that the conditions here are very harsh, even the number of enemies is very few. If you want to form an army of cultivators, we can recruit a lot of immortal warriors when we return to the immortal world. It's both effective and convenient, so why not?" Education must start from the children. Tan Xiu shook his head. What have those cultivators and immortals who have already cultivated their cultivation foundation, what kind of background they have, and whether they can follow me wholeheartedly? These are all problems. The environment in the immortal world is very complicated. If we go there to recruit experts, I'm afraid it'll be easy for the enemy's people to sneak into the team if they deliberately conceal themselves. Your reasoning is very weak, Venerable Lord, said Ji Qimei. What if I tell you that I don't want to waste any time and urgently need a group of loyal powerhouses? Tan Xiu lightly smiled. It's quite boring on Earth. If you don't find something to do, don't you think it's a waste of time? Furthermore, the more the merrier. We still don't know how long we'll have to stay on Earth. Having more subordinates is always a good thing. Am I right? Yes. Ji Qimei respectfully nodded. After nearly an hour of flight, the helicopter finally arrived at the 14th deserted island. One by one, the strong figures jumped down from a height of more than 10 meters and quickly formed into two teams. There were a total of 48 of them, and all of them were foundation establishment experts. Tan Xiu stepped on the void and walked to the ground step by step. Boss. Among the dozens of people who had been waiting below, a tall and sturdy man with a dark complexion quickly ran in front of Tan Xiu and respectfully called out. Tan Xiu asked, "What's the situation?" The burly man replied, "Reporting, boss. The deep-sea tracker we released is monitoring those two liners. In addition, the whole unitary sex liner that left Nine Dragons Island is also under our surveillance. According to the sailing speed of both sides, they are expected to meet in half an hour. The rendezvous point is near the 9th deserted island." "Do you have a map?" asked Tan Xiu. The burly man took out a map from his pocket and unfolded it, pointing to the 9th deserted island. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and said, "You continue to be responsible for monitoring and contact us at any time. Do remember to stay hidden and pay attention to your safety. I suspect that the enemy has more than two liners. If you find any traces of other liners, you must inform me immediately. Also, if you find any signs of the other party landing on the island, immediately evacuate and pay attention to your safety." "Boss, don't you need us to deal with those enemies?" asked the burly man. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "The other party is not an ordinary person. It's impossible for you to be their match with your strength. Do remember to follow my orders if you want to fight them in the future. The better you perform, the stronger you will have the opportunity to become in the future." "Understood." The burly man respectfully nodded. Tan Xiu glanced at the 48 foundation establishment experts and gestured to them. Then he immediately soared into the sky and entered the helicopter, hovering more than 10 meters high in the blink of an eye. The others also followed him and quickly returned to the helicopter. The 9th deserted island. Cui Jian was controlling the computer in front of him. As his fingers typed on the keyboard, a series of commands were continuously inputted. 4 small screens appeared in the 4 corners of the computer screen. The content of the screen was that of 2 liners slowly sailing on the calm sea. "Captain, the tracker has found the liner sailing out of Nine Dragons Island. It's only 6 nautical miles away from the other 2 liners. If those liners are equipped with detectors, they should have already found the other party." A young man a few meters away from Cui Jian turned his head and reported. Cui Jian's expression shifted and he immediately inputted a series of commands. As the image on the upper left corner of the computer screen changed, a liner soon appeared. He could clearly see 2 teenagers sitting cross-legged on the deck of the liner, maintaining a cultivation posture. "Inform boss." On the boundless sea, Jin Chanzi was sitting cross-legged on the deck, silently cultivating his sex cultivation technique. He was now an expert at the late stage of foundation establishment. Although he had yet to see the door to the Golden Core stage, he firmly believed that he would break through to the Golden Core stage sooner or later and become a famous powerhouse in the cultivation world through his diligent cultivation. Suddenly an alarm rang from inside the liner. Jin Chanzi instantly opened his eyes. Just as he and Jin Xingzi floated up, Taoist Zixuan's figure appeared beside them. "They're not friendly." Daoist Zixuan squinted her eyes and indifferently said while looking at the two liners sailing on the sea in the distance. "What do you mean by that, master?" asked Jin Chanzi. "Do you know who they are?" "The captain of the liner in the cabin has tried to contact them through the communication device and asked about their identity," said Daoist Zixuan lightly. "But the other party simply ignored him. According to the captain, they would only act like this when they encounter hostile people at sea. Also, don't forget why you came to Nine Dragons Island." Jin Chanzi stared blankly for a moment and suddenly said, "Master, you mean those people are likely to be from the Celestial Wizard clan? Did they come here to avenge the deaths of their clansmen?" Daoist Zixuan's eyes were as bright as torches. At this moment, she could clearly see the black-robed people standing on the decks of the two liners in the distance, wielding staffs and weapons. According to her understanding of the Celestial Wizard clan, their attire was exactly what they were wearing. Remember, we cultivate to pursue the mysteries of heavenly Tao and the way to immortality, not to fight and kill for no reason. If they don't attack us when we meet them, we must not rashly clash with them. According to your previous reasoning, the possibility that they won't attack us is very low, Master. Jin Chanzi frowned. It's very likely that the Celestial Wizard clan came here to seek revenge. That's right, they might also want to snatch Nine Dragons Island. Let's not interfere too much in the matter between Nine Dragons Island and the Celestial Wizard clan, said Daoist Zixuan lightly. Our whole unitary sect may not be afraid of the Celestial Wizard clan, but it's better to avoid unnecessary conflicts as much as possible. As for Daoist Tang's group from Nine Dragons Island, I hope they can deter the Celestial Wizard clan. After all, we still need to make a deal with them. Are we not going to help Big Brother Tang, Master? Asked Jin Chanzi. We can't just sit back and do nothing if the Celestial Wizard clan kills ordinary people for no reason, said Daoist Zixuan lightly. But Daoist Tang's group is a cultivator, and they also killed the Celestial Wizard clan's clansmen. We must avoid getting involved as much as possible. Jin Chanzi fell into silence. He didn't know much about the Celestial Wizard clan, but he was perfectly aware that his group of 6 actually had a conflict with the Celestial Wizard clans Salik Sarodi and WX Salik Salik. Although they weren't in the hands of his group of 6, they still ruined their plans. Furthermore, he knew about the deal between Tan Xiao and his master. If the Celestial Wizard clan was very powerful and Tan Xiao and his people were eventually defeated, wouldn't the deal be cancelled? Wouldn't the cultivation manual that could allow one to cultivate to the Great Ascension stage be lost? Suddenly, he keenly sensed a trace of killing intent coming from his master, Daoist Zixuan. Daoist Zixuan stared at the two liners that were getting closer and closer. When the distance between the two ships was less than a kilometer, a figure suddenly sprinted from the opposite liner and stood in front of her in the blink of an eye. Why did the Celestial Wizard clan board our liner? The black-robed old man looked at Daoist Zixuan and slightly furrowed his brows. Then, he said in a deep voice, "You know our history? Who are you people?" "We're cultivators." "You can call me Daoist Zixuan," said Daoist Zixuan indifferently. The black-robed old man squinted his eyes and carefully observed Daoist Zixuan for a moment. Then, he coldly said, "A cultivator from the mysterious eastern country? Why you here? Have you seen any other clansmen of our Celestial Wizard clan 10 days ago?" "I haven't seen it, but my disciple has," said Daoist Zixuan lightly. "Wuladi and Salik killed ordinary people and tangled with 6 of my disciples. I also know that they've been killed. You came here from thousands of miles away to avenge them, didn't you?" The black-robed old man's expression changed. He raised the gem-inlaid staff in his hand and asked with a murderous expression, "Are you the ones who killed Wuladi and Salik Salik?" "So what if I am?" Daoist Zixuan replied with a straight face. "So what if I'm not?" Chapter 936. With an overbearing tone, the black-robed old man coldly said, "You'll all die here today if you're the ones who killed Sarodi and Saro. If not, you must prove that you have nothing to do with it, else you'll still die." Sighing inwardly, Daoist Zixuan instantly unleashed her killing intent and proudly said, "Even if we're not the ones who killed those 2 Celestial Wizard clansmen, they deserve to die for their crimes. We cultivators pursue the great Tao, so we'll never kill the innocent. But if you dare to bully us, then we'll have no choice but to eliminate you." The black-robed old man didn't speak again. He quickly bit his finger and drew a blood-colored talisman in the void with his finger while pointing the staff in his other hand at Taoist Zixuan. In an instant, a billowing black mist appeared out of thin air. As the blood-colored talisman collapsed, thousands of blood-colored lines began to spread out. As though they had a life of their own, they gradually outlined a world for the black mist. Tenebrous domain. The gem embedded on the staff in the black-robed old man's hand burst out with a resplendent light. It was a bewitching blood-red color, and black smoke filled the air, forming skulls with blood-red eyes. Countless skulls stacked on top of each other to form a human-shaped skeletal weapon. Taoist Zixuan's expression drastically changed. She had some understanding of the Celestial Wizard clan and was well aware that the wizards who could unleash the Tenebrous domain were the top powerhouses of the clan. "If you want to fight, then I'll accompany you." Taoist Zixuan soared into the sky. Although the black mist was filled with a pungent smell and had a strong stickiness, she instantly split open a path and dashed hundreds of meters away. "I, Taoist Zixuan, never kill a nameless person. Since you can unleash the Tenebrous domain, you must be a top expert of the Celestial Wizard clan, right? Come with me, let's see who's stronger and who's weaker." "I'm Sorcerer Soroi." The corner of the black-robed old man's mouth slightly opened, but his voice was like a monstrous wave that rumbled and spread toward Taoist Zixuan at an extremely fast speed. The skeletal monster made of black mist formed a bone whip in its hand and aggressively pounced toward Taoist Zixuan. Ocean of Swords. The long sword on Taoist Zixuan's back was instantly unsheathed. 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 4, 4 turned into 16. In less than half a second, the long sword turned into thousands of sword shadows, like a raging sea of swords, stirring up the black mist that blotted the sky as layers upon layers of swords rushed towards the skeleton monster. On the 9th deserted island. As the 10 helicopters hovered in the air more than 10 meters above the land, lightning-like figures dashed out of the helicopter hatch and landed on the coast at lightning speed. Cui Jian, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately put down the computer in his hand and dashed to the front of Tan Xiu. He saluted and said, "Subordinate Cui Jian greets boss." "How's the situation?" Tan Xiu asked in a deep voice. The whole Unitary Sect's liner and the Celestial Wizard clan's liner met and a conflict broke out between them, said Cui Jian. At present, the whole Unitary Sect's people and the Celestial Wizard clan's experts clashed. "Boss, the computer is over there. You can watch their battle." Following Cui Jian, Tan Xiu came to the computer. As his eyes fell on the screen, he happened to see the scene of Taoist Zixuan unleashing her sword amidst the black mist. Worthy of being a Golden Core stage expert. Their attacks are very powerful. But that Celestial Wizard expert's moves are very similar to those of Ghost Cultivators. "Cui Jian, how far are they from the 9th deserted island?" 26 nautical miles, answered Cui Jian. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and turned to look at the neatly lined 48 Foundation establishment experts. Then, he said in a deep voice, "All of you stay here and don't act without my order. Ji Qing, both of you come with me to watch the battle." "The speedboat is not far away, boss. I'll send someone to drive it over," asked Cui Jian quickly. "No need to trouble yourself." Tan Xiu waved his hand. "Let's go, Ji Qimei." "Understood," Ji Qimei replied. A stream of air instantly carried Tan Xiu and Ao as they quickly flew to the distance. With Ji Qimei's strength, she could easily find the battle with her spiritual sense. In just a few seconds, the trio had already appeared more than 20 nautical miles away. However, Tan Xiu wanted to see the means of the whole Unitary Sect, so he ordered Ji Qimei to stay a few kilometers away and watch the battle scene with binoculars. "They're very strong, boss. At least, they're much stronger than me," said Mo Ao with a solemn expression as he stood beside Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu glanced at him and lightly said, "Taoist Zixuan is a Golden Core expert, so she's naturally much stronger than you. But judging from her attacks, I can tell that she doesn't have the power that a Golden Core expert should have." This shows that she's either deliberately hiding her strength, or she's very strong but doesn't have much combat experience. As for that wizard, his strength is not as good as Taoist Zixuan's, but his attacks are very special. Furthermore, it's obvious that he has rich combat experience. Even though he's controlling the skeleton monster to attack, he can still control it with ease. Mo's expression moved and he asked, "But what, boss?" But even if that wizard has rich combat experience, he's still not Taoist Zixuan's match due to his cultivation level, said Tan Xiu. He can only hold on for a few minutes at most before he's defeated or killed. A few kilometers away. Layers of overlapping sword images were like raging waves hitting the shore, constantly forcing the skeleton monster to retreat. Even if the bone whip in its hand was very powerful, it still couldn't break the sea of swords in front of it. It couldn't pose any threat to Taoist Zixuan at all. As the skulls formed by the black mist on the bone whip continued to collapse, the skeleton monster's attack power became weaker and weaker. Bastard! The black-robed old man, Suroi, looked ferocious. His legs were wrapped by 2 strands of black mist as he instantly appeared on the left shoulder of the skeleton monster. A sharp black dagger once again tore open a wound on his finger, and fresh blood was instantly splashed into the skeleton monster's body. Boom! A surging aura burst out from the skeleton monster's body. The black mist in the surroundings once again formed a large number of black skulls and quickly fused into the skeleton monster's body. In just a few seconds, the skeleton monster's body nearly doubled in size and the bone whip also grew bigger, causing the power it unleashed to be a bit stronger than before. Break it! Blue veins throbbed on Suroi's forehead as he fiercely waved his arm. It was as if the skeleton monster was mimicking his movements and also quickly waved its arm. The tens of meters long bone whip burst out with a whistling sound as it fiercely bombarded the sea of swords. Bim, him. The sea of swords seemed to have been split open, followed by countless explosions. The bone whip was like a hot knife through butter as it smashed the sea of swords and appeared in front of Taoist Zixuan 100 meters away in the blink of an eye. A look of disdain flashed in Taoist Zixuan's eyes. As she raised her arm, a cold voice came out of her mouth. "You've got some skill, but if this is all you can do, you'll be the one to lose today." The scattered swords eventually turned into a long sword that fluttered around her body, locking her in place to dodge. The long sword frantically devoured the surrounding world's spiritual energy. Although the density of the world's spiritual energy here was very thin, the intense light formed by the long sword's rapid rotation was like a blazing sun rising in the darkness, blooming with intense rays of light. The sword is like the blazing sun, shining with boundless radiance. Taoist Zixuan's cold voice sounded out. Countless sword shadows kept shooting out from the blazing sun and continuously bombarded the skeleton monster. Each sword light was tens of meters long and looked like a chain of swords in the sky. The impact of the thousands of sword lights finally shattered the bone whip in the skeleton monster's hand. However, the rainbow-like sword lights didn't seem to have any intention of stopping as they kept bombarding the skeleton monster, shredding its arms and tearing its body. In just a few breaths, the skeleton monster's arms were shredded and a hole several meters wide appeared on its chest. "Watch out!" 2 shadows flickered from the celestial wizard clan's 2 liners in the distance. The 2 old men bit the tip of their tongues and sprayed out a mouthful of blood mist. Then, they appeared beside Suroi amidst the thick black mist. The magic staffs in their hands released intense magical power to form a black shield around them. Kacha! The skeleton monster was finally smashed by the sword lights and the countless sword lights hit the black shield. As cracks appeared on the black shield, the 2 black-robed old men silently chanted an incantation and 2 giant black axes suddenly took shape above the shield. Slash! The 2 men shouted in unison and combined the 2 axes into one in a flash. Then, with a thunderous momentum, the axes collided with the sword lights. At this moment, the pale-faced Suroi suddenly took out a 10-centimeter-long silver needle and stabbed it into his heart. The moment the silver needle was pulled out, blood gushed out from his heart. When the blood stained the surrounding black mist, it immediately ignited into a monstrous flame. The flame was black in color and exuded a high temperature, causing the sea below to boil and countless fish and shrimp carcasses to float to the surface. Blood curse. A crazy light flashed in Soroy's eyes. After the black flame instantly fused with the black axe, the axe grew several times in size and became hundreds of meters long. The power of the axe also increased by several times, smashing the sword lights in front of it and appearing in front of Taoist Zixuan with irresistible force. Damn it! Taoist Zixuan cursed. Her figure instantly soared into the sky. Although the surrounding darkness domain greatly affected her, she still dashed to a height of 1 kilometer in an instant and got rid of the black mist. Her long sword also quickly flew back to her hand. However, cracks began to appear on the body of the sword that was originally shining with a cold light. Corrosive black mist lingered in between the cracks. Chapter 937. At a glance, Taoist Zixuan realized that her sword, which she had been nourishing for hundreds of years, was being corroded by the black mist and was now completely ruined. My magic tool! Taoist Zixuan's lips trembled in distress. Her whole unitary sect had many magic tools, but top-notch magic tools were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. She had inherited this sword magic tool from her sect's elders and had nourished it for hundreds of years with her heart's blood and true essence. Yet, hundreds of years of hard work were about to vanish in front of her eyes. At this moment, Taoist Zixuan, who had excellent self-cultivation skills, finally had a crazy killing intent in her heart. She hated these celestial wizard clansmen in front of her and wished she could kill them all. However, reason told her that it would be very difficult for her to kill all the celestial wizard clansmen even if she risked her life. Even so, if she really risked her life, she would most likely be the one to die in the battle. So much so that her 10 disciples on the liner below would die in the battle. A few kilometers away, Tan Xiu could clearly see the battle scene in the distance through a high-powered telescope. He didn't expect that the battle between the two sides would end up like this. Just 3 experts of Celestial Wizard Clan were able to force Taoist Zixuan to retreat and even destroy the magic sword in her hand. What a pity! Tan Xiu secretly shook his head. He put down the telescope and said, "Boss, I don't think that female expert from the whole unitary sect is a match for the Celestial Wizard Clan. Also, there's something strange about that black mist. The sword in her hand is being corroded by the black mist. I'm afraid it's going to be scrapped soon." That's right. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Taoist Zixuan can easily kill one wizard. But she's facing 3 of them at the same time, especially since they are proficient in joint attacks. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for her to kill all 3 of them. Even if Taoist Zixuan risked her life and barely managed to kill all 3 of them, I'm afraid she'll have to pay a heavy price." "I don't think there are only 3 experts from the Celestial Wizard Clan," said Mo Au in a deep voice. "There are about 40 to 50 Celestial Wizard experts on those 2 liners, and it's likely that there are more powerful experts hidden on them." Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he shook his head and said, "I'm afraid there are no more powerful experts on those 2 liners. But I'm afraid there are powerful experts on the incoming liner. At the very least, they are not weaker than those 3. Mo stared blankly and hurriedly raised his binoculars to look again. Through his observation, he found that another liner had appeared not far from the 2 liners. There were not many people on that liner, about a dozen, but the leader of the group was an old man sitting on a chair who looked extraordinary. "The Celestial Wizard Clan's reinforcements have arrived. Boss, if we don't help them, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for the cultivators of the whole unitary sect to leave alive." That's right. Tan Xiu glanced at Jin Chanzi and the others from the whole unitary sect and said, "The whole unitary sect has a long history and has been passed down for more than 1,000 years. The cultivation resources accumulated by the sect are absolutely enormous. After all, for Jin Chanzi and the others to reach the foundation establishment stage at such a young age, they must have invested a lot of cultivation resources. We have an agreement with the whole unitary sect. I need their cultivation resources, so Taoist Zixuan must not die. Do you want to notify our people on the 9th island to come here?" asked Mo Au. "No need." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, Our Foundation establishment experts can't fight in the air for a long time. Once they fly in the air, their true essence will be consumed too fast, and it will be very disadvantageous for them to fight. We need to lure the Celestial Wizard clan to the 9th island. I'll go, boss, said All. Tan Xiu thought for a while and nodded. I'll leave this task to you later. But not now. We must save the whole unitary sect's people while they are in despair. With a life-saving favor in the deal, it will be beneficial to our next deal. You're really wise, boss. Mo gave a thumbs up and praised. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "Oh, you've also learned how to flatter others?" Mo let out a hollow laugh and scratched the back of his head. Boss, if all the experts of the Celestial Wizard clan attack, I'll be at my limit even if I can save Daoist Zixuan. What should we do with Jin Chanzi and the others from the whole unitary sect? Don't worry, Tan Xiu said. The Celestial Wizard clan is here for revenge. You just need to tell them that we're the ones who killed their clansmen. They won't bother with Jin Chanzi and the others. In the sky, Daoist Zixuan also saw another liner sailing over. Through observation, she could tell that the other party was also from the Celestial Wizard clan. This discovery caused her heart to finally become nervous. She was confident that she could easily escape if she wanted to escape. But the 10 disciples she had painstakingly trained were all at the Foundation establishment stage. It would be very difficult for them to escape from the pursuit of the Celestial Wizard clan's experts. What should I do? Daoist Zixuan was a bit worried. She couldn't just watch as something bad happened to her 10 disciples. She raised them, taught them cultivation techniques, and watched them grow up. In her heart, Jin Chanzi and the others were her children. Solyue's group of 3 wanted to chase after Daoist Zixuan, but they immediately gave up the idea after they found that their clansmen had arrived. Their clan's Grand Elder was on the incoming liner. Greetings, Grand Elder. The 3 of them landed on the incoming liner and bowed respectfully. Sitting on the chair, Astrius Salik looked like a man in his twilight years. He raised his eyelids and glanced at the trio before his eyes finally landed on Solyue. Then he lightly asked, "Are you injured?" "She's a very powerful Chinese cultivator, Grand Elder," said Solyue bitterly. "I alone am not her match. That's why I used the blood curse in the fight." Astrius Salika's expression slightly changed and he shouted in a deep voice, "What nonsense! Once the blood curse is used, it will damage your lifespan. It's already very difficult for you to break through to the wizard ancestor realm. Now that you've used the blood curse, your lifespan will be greatly reduced, making it even more difficult for you to break through in your lifetime." "Don't worry, Grand Elder," said Solyue hurriedly. "I happened to get a black magus fruit when I was traveling outside many years ago. If I take it, I can make up for the loss of lifespan from using the blood curse." Astrius Salik looked surprised and nodded. "You don't need to use the blood curse since you have the black magus fruit. However, it can only restore 100 years of your lifespan at most. You're not allowed to use the blood curse again unless it's a last resort." "I understand," said Solyue hurriedly. Astrius Salik slowly raised his head. His eyes were deep as though they contained endless mysteries. Even though Daoist Zixuan was standing thousands of meters high in the air, he could still see her clearly. "You, come down." His voice traveled a few meters away and eventually formed a sound line that was transmitted to Daoist Zixuan's ears. Daoist Zixuan was silent for a moment before she finally descended from the sky and landed on her liner. She looked at Astrius Salik, who was thousands of meters away, and sneered. "No wonder the Celestial Wizard clan has the guts to go against my whole unitary sect. It turns out that the Celestial Wizard clan's Grand Elder, Astrius Salik, has arrived. I'm curious that it's been hundreds of years. How come you're still alive?" "Daoist Zixuan, we haven't seen each other since we parted 300 years ago, right?" Astrius Salik lightly smiled. "I didn't expect you to be as beautiful as before. I'm still as beautiful as ever, but you're about to turn into an old skeleton," sneered Daoist Zixuan. "Anyways, I want to ask you something, Astrius Salik. Does your Celestial Wizard clan really want to shed all pretense of cordiality with my whole unitary sect? Your whole unitary sect is located in the east, whereas my celestial wizard clan is far away from you. Astrius Salik shook his head. It's just that 2 of my celestial wizard clan's elders died here, so my clan must find the murderer and avenge them. If you're the one who killed my elders, you'll have to give me an explanation. Otherwise, even if my celestial wizard clan and your whole unitary sect shed all pretense of cordiality, we can only settle it with a fight. Taoist Zixuan was silent for a moment before she coldly snorted and said, I told you that we're not the ones who killed your celestial wizard clan. It's just that my disciple has a grudge with your 2 elders. If you want to put this account on my whole unitary sect, then we'll accept it. Astrius Salik squinted his eyes and asked, What grudge? Your celestial wizard clan has been killing ordinary people. This is not something my whole unitary sect can tolerate, said Taoist Zixuan. Murderers will always be killed. Since they killed ordinary people, they must be prepared to be killed by someone stronger. Someone stronger? Astrius Salik disdainfully curled his lips and said, Someone stronger? I'd like to know who the stronger person you're talking about is. I won't tell you. Taoist Zixuan shook her head. Astrius Salik floated up and instantly appeared tens of meters away from Taoist Zixuan. His feet stepped on the surface of the sea, but the seawater didn't wet his boots. He calmly looked at Taoist Zixuan and said with a faint smile, Since you don't want to tell me, then I'll beat you until you talk. It's been 300 years since we last met. I want to know how strong the proud daughter of the whole unitary sect has become now. Taoist Zixuan's expression changed. She could tell from the aura emanating from Astrius Salik that this old man's cultivation was definitely not weaker than hers. He should have broken through to the wizard ancestor realm of the celestial wizard clan. She had some understanding of the celestial wizard clan and knew that the wizard ancestor of the celestial wizard clan was definitely comparable to the golden core stage cultivators. If you want to fight, then I'll keep you company. Taoist Zixuan grabbed the long sword on Golden Cicada's back and a huge aura burst out from her body again. She stared at Astrius Salik, but she didn't rush to act since she needed her disciples to evacuate safely. Starting today, every increase of 200 votes in the monthly votes will add 1 chapter. Brothers and sisters, let's get high carrot under. Chapter 938. Taoist Zixuan turned her head and condensed her voice to transmit it to Jin Chanzi's ears. I'll hold them back. You guys run away immediately. Remember to run towards 9 Dragons Island. Taoist Tang will protect your lives as long as you can reach the island. Master. Jin Chanzi hurriedly called out. Taoist Zixuan scowled and fiercely glared at him. Then she transmitted her voice again. This is my order. You must obey it. The Celestial Wizard Clan's Grand Elder is very strong. His cultivation is not inferior to mine. I'm sure I can escape, but I don't have the confidence to protect all of you with so many enemies around. Run. Jin Chanzi clenched his fists tightly. An intense unwillingness and anger rose in his heart. He hated himself for being too weak. If he had enough strength, he would be able to fight alongside his master at this moment instead of leaving her here in such a crisis. At the same time, he regretted informing his master to come here. If he hadn't informed his master, they wouldn't have encountered this kind of danger and wouldn't have put his master in danger. Golden Cicada gritted his teeth and quickly transmitted his voice to his 5 junior brothers and 4 senior sisters. Although the others were reluctant to leave, he still repeated what his master, Taoist Zixuan, had just said. Finally, he transmitted his voice to them. Junior brothers, senior sisters, we must escape as soon as possible if you don't want to become a burden to Master. Otherwise, not only will we not be able to escape, but Master will also die here. Run. The other 9 people were just like Jin Chanzi. Although they were filled with helplessness and anger, they could only choose this path in the end. At this moment, they even abandoned their ships, took out their magic tools, and fled towards 9 Dragons Island. A contemptuous look appeared on Astrius Salika's face as he coldly snorted and said, "Capture them alive. Don't let any of them go." Understood. Dozens of figures flashed lightning fast from the 3 liners. Black mist surged as they quickly chased after Jin Chanzi's group of 10. 3 of the figures were extremely fast and intercepted Jin Chanzi's group of 10 just a few kilometers away. Taoist Zixuan's face was a bit pale. She dashed towards the 10 disciples, but was blocked by black mist that appeared out of thin air. Astrius Salik was holding a magic staff. Although he looked old, the aura he exuded was very powerful. The battle between us hasn't even started and you want to leave? After standing in front of Taoist Zixuan, Astrius Salik waved the staff in his hand even faster. The black mist formed a bubble that continuously surrounded Taoist Zixuan, trapping her within a radius of 100 meters. Taoist Zixuan's killing intent skyrocketed. As she brandished her sword energy slashed and shattered the black bubbles one after another. Even the surrounding airflow became chaotic. 10,000 swords become one. The sword chi shattered the black bubble, eventually forming a 100-meter-long sword shadow that emitted a cold light. As the light from the long sword grew brighter, it instantly engulfed Astrius Salik. World of darkness. Astrius Salik let out a wild laugh as a scythe-shaped weapon appeared in his hand out of thin air. The moment the scythe rotated rapidly and collided with the 100-meter-long sword image, countless black bubbles emerged again. Soon, tens of thousands of densely packed black bubbles appeared and sealed every direction around Taoist Zixuan. Boom! The shockwave caused by the collision of the 2 weapons caused Taoist Zixuan's body to shake violently. A shocked look appeared in her deep eyes as she exclaimed, "The Grim Reaper Scythe? Damn! It turns out that this Grim Reaper Scythe was obtained by your Celestial Wizard clan during the expedition 300 years ago?" That's right. My father took advantage of the infighting between various forces to obtain this Grim Reaper Scythe. Astrius Salik laughed heartily. If I remember correctly, your whole unitary sect should have suffered a lot of losses in that treasure hunt, right? After 300 years of refining, this Grim Reaper Scythe has become my natal wizard artifact. Unless you can destroy it, it'll drink your blood today. Taoist Zixuan cast some seals and black clouds quickly appeared in the sky. Lightning bolts then fell from the sky and struck the black bubbles. As the black bubbles burned, the rotating Grim Reaper Scythe shattered the sword images and sent out a small blade energy that swept past Taoist Zixuan. She had a very strong defense, but the Grim Reaper Scythe was extremely powerful. Despite her desperate efforts to dodge and resist, tiny wounds were still left on her body. Chin strike. Annihilation. Astrius Salik suddenly shouted. Dozens of black bubbles that had yet to be destroyed by the lightning bolts suddenly exploded around Taoist Zixuan, forming black flames that bombarded her body. Puff! Taoist Zixuan's body trembled more violently and she coughed up a mouthful of blood. At this moment, despair filled Taoist Zixuan's eyes. She was confident that she could withstand Astrius Salika's attack if her top-grade magic longsword wasn't destroyed. But now, it was as if she could already see the scene of her being severely injured and fleeing, as well as the scene of her 10 disciples being killed. A few kilometers away, a glint flashed in Tanxio's eyes and he said in a deep voice, "All, it's your turn." All nodded without a word and his figure darted like a cannonball toward the battlefield in the distance. He flew extremely fast on his flying sword and appeared nearby in the blink of an eye. He then shouted, "Damn it! How come there are so many celestial wizard bastards here? I obviously killed 2 of them before. Where did these celestial wizard bastards come from?" Suddenly, the expressions of all the celestial wizard experts changed. They stopped attacking the whole unitary sex people and retreated to look at Moo. Intense killing intent instantly locked onto him. Astrius Salik, who originally planned to kill Taoist Zixuan, suddenly had a change in expression after hearing Moo's words. After seeing Moo's figure clearly, he gave up on chasing Taoist Zixuan and instantly pounced toward Moo, shouting fiercely, "Did you kill Salik Salik and Salik Salik?" Moo's eyes lit up and he burst into laughter. "Ah, so those 2 old geezers of the Celestial Wizard clan are called Salik Salik and Salik Salik. I asked them for their names before, but they said I'm not qualified to know them. I'm sure they regretted not telling me their names when I killed them. What's your name, old geezer?" "I am Moo. Don't kill nameless people." The corner of Astria Salika's eyes twitched after hearing Mo's words. As the sky-blotting black mist surged toward Mo, the Grim Reaper's scythe also rapidly spun and slashed toward him. "Little bastard! This old man swears to kill you today." Astria Salik roared and launched an attack. Mo was well aware of how terrifying Astria Salik was, so he didn't want to fight him at all. Looking at the rolling black mist, he let out a strange cry and turned around to flee in the direction he came from. "God damn it! This old bastard is too strong. Did all the dead wizards of the Celestial Wizard clan crawl out of their graves? I thought I was strong enough, but I didn't expect you to be stronger than me, old geezer. Come at me if you have the guts. My boss will definitely kick your balls if he finds out you bullied me." "No, wait, you're almost a skeleton now. How can you still have balls?" Astria Salika's face flushed with anger. How many years has it been? How many years has it been since someone dared to curse him? Never did he expect that he would encounter a reckless bastard in the sea today who dared to curse him with such vicious words. "Must die." Astria Salika's speed was getting faster and faster. Due to his formidable strength, Mo was quickly overtaken even though he had a flying sword and had a high level of mastery over it. "You old bastard!" Mo cursed and fled. In just half a minute he had already fled more than 10 nautical miles away. Behind him, besides Astria Salik who was chasing him and was getting closer, all the experts of the Celestial Wizard clan were chasing him. They even gave up on killing the people from the whole unitary sect and only had eyes for Mo, the murderer of their clansmen. A kilometer up in the sky, standing above the clouds, Ji Chime and Tan Shio watched Mo being chased down below with sneers on their faces. According to their calculations, even though Astria Salik was faster than Mo could definitely reach the 9th barren island before he was overtaken. "Lord, those people from the whole unitary sect haven't escaped." Ji Chime's spiritual sense swept over and reported in a low voice. "Let's ignore those people from the whole unitary sect for now," said Tan Shio lightly. "We need to leave some of these experts of the Celestial Wizard clan on the 9th barren island. I just hope that fewer of my men will die. The Foundation establishment experts of our Everlasting Feast Hall are no match for these experts of the Celestial Wizard clan if we don't act," said Ji Chime. "Especially that old geezer who's chasing Mo. His strength is at least at the late stage of Golden Core. I'm afraid he won't fall into a disadvantageous position even if he fights some pseudo-nascent soul stage experts." "Do you think Tang Guang and Tang and have a chance of winning if they join the fight?" asked Tan Shio. "Tang Guang and Tang have made rapid progress recently and have broken through to the mid-stage of Golden Core," said Ji Chime. "We might have a chance if they join the fight." "But what?" asked Tan Shio. "Even if Tang Guang and Tang can fight this old geezer to a draw, there are still 3 experts from the Celestial Wizard clan. Those 3 are very strong and I'm afraid our Everlasting Feast Hall's Foundation establishment experts are no match for them. Besides, we don't have an advantage in terms of numbers." Tan Shio fell into silence for a moment and then turned to look at the whole unitary sect's group. On the sea surface, Taoist Zixuan and her 10 disciples had gathered together. Aside from Taoist Zixuan being injured, Golden Cicada's 10 disciples were also wounded after the fight just now. "It's a Mo, master." Golden Cicada looked at the figures of the people disappearing on the sea surface and spoke with a bit of worry. Taoist Zixuan was a bit dazed. She was a bit desperate just now, but Mo's sudden appearance led the enemies away and directly resolved their crisis. What shocked her the most, however, was the sword Mo was stepping on. Chapter 939. Taoist Zixuan had lived for hundreds of years, so she was definitely an experienced and knowledgeable person. She had personally refined a Dharma artifact before, so she naturally knew the power of a Dharma artifact. However, the sword that Mo wielded just now was definitely not a Dharma artifact. Besides, with Mo's strength, it was impossible for him to fly so quickly. The reason he was able to escape so smoothly was definitely related to that sword. Could it be an immortal sword? Taoist Zixuan suddenly realized something, and her bright eyes instantly widened. "Golden Cicada, who was standing beside Taoist Zixuan, heard her murmur and asked with a confused expression, "What are you talking about, master? What immortal sword?" Taoist Zixuan suddenly recalled what Tan Xiu once said. Tan Xiu had obtained a mysterious inheritance, which was why he was able to cultivate to his current level. It was also because of that immortal opportunity that he obtained a cultivation method that could allow him to cultivate to the great vehicle stage and even the tribulation stage. Could it be, did Tan Xiu not only obtain that cultivation method? And an immortal sword? After thinking up to there, Taoist Zixuan immediately turned to Jin Chanzi and asked in a deep voice, "You've been staying on Nine Dragons Island for a long time. Do you know the origin of the flying sword in Mo Au's hand?" Golden Cicada said, "Master, I'm not very sure either. However, many of Tan Xiu's subordinates had flying swords, and I found that they all kept their flying swords inside their bodies, only using them in battle. Our whole unitary sect doesn't have a method to store flying swords in the body, but they definitely have one." Taoist Zixuan involuntarily exclaimed, "A flying sword that can be taken into the body. It's definitely an immortal sword. Are you telling the truth? Many of Tan Xiu's subordinates have immortal swords?" "Immortal sword?" Golden Cicada nodded and said, "Yes. There were at least a dozen of them. Mo Au and the others used flying swords to kill the two celestial wizard clan's elders." Taoist Zixuan's heart was filled with shock. Looking at the direction where Mo Au disappeared, a strong impulse arose in her heart. She also wanted an immortal sword because it was a divine weapon that only immortals could possess. She even realized that if she had an immortal sword, even Astrius Salik wouldn't be a match for her. Find an opportunity to trade with Tan Xiu. It's best if he's willing to exchange an immortal sword for cultivation resources. If he's unwilling, even if we have to sneakily attack him, we must snatch one of the immortal swords. A fierce look flashed in Taoist Zixuan's eyes and she said in a deep voice, "Let's follow them and help Mo Au resist those celestial wizard experts. Of celestial wizard clan's master, and of Zaif. I can't help even if we catch them, Ken of masters of." If it were up to me, I would say that we should retreat first and immediately return to the sect to invite the experts over. I say I, master, I Dao, I for Dao, of Dao, I Dao, I, the Zixuan, I Dao of, I, Tan of, Daowas, Dao and Kuden, of the Mother, Wutu of, Mo Au is being hunted by the Celestial Wizard clan because he wants to help us. If we turn a blind eye to him and watch him die, we'll be committing treachery and shameful. Listen to me. Even if we have to perish together with the enemies of the Celestial Wizard clan, we can't lose the face of our whole unitary sect. Understood. Jin Chanzi and the others looked firm. On the 9th barren island, Tan Xiu and Ji Qimei had returned ahead of time. Tan Xiu had decided to take action himself in order to avoid a large number of his men dying in battle. His strength was no less than that of the Celestial Wizard clan's Grand Elder. As long as there was no threat from the Grand Elder, Tang Guang and Tang and would be able to resist even if there were 3 Celestial Wizard clan's experts. As for the other Celestial Wizard experts, Tan Xiu believed that his Foundation establishment subordinates could deal with them. Ji Qimei won't help us, so today is a fight to the death for us. On a narrow path, only the brave wins. Today, the 9th barren island will be our battlefield. I'll reward you with a lot of cultivation resources as long as you survive." Tan Xiu stared at the 48 Foundation establishment experts and spoke in a deep voice. Everyone present. In addition to the 48 Foundation establishment experts, there were also Jin Shi, Xue Sha, and the other 8 personal bodyguards, as well as Tang Guang and Tang, and judging from the number of people, they were no less than the Celestial Wizard clan. Kill. 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 The 49 Foundation establishment experts exuded a thick killing intent. They were all battle-hardened figures who had climbed out of a pile of corpses. Although their cultivation had greatly increased after breaking through to the Foundation establishment stage, and they rarely fought with powerhouses of the same level, their past experience in combat gave them the confidence to fight. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with their momentum. He turned to look at Moo, who had already appeared in the sky, and Astrius Salak, who was chasing after him. Then, he said in a deep voice, "Get ready to fight." On the sea, Astrius Salak's eyes were full of excitement as he saw Moo getting closer and closer. He even judged that he would catch up with him in a few minutes. He wanted to kill someone. It had been a long time since he had such an urge. Looking at the fleeing Moo in front of him, he seemed to be able to see the scene of him wailing in pain under his scythe, as well as the scene of blood splattering everywhere. "You can't kill me, old geezer." Moo let out a wild laugh and rushed to the 9th barren island lightning fast and quickly stopped next to Tanshio. Astrius Salak had already seen the people on the 9th barren island at this moment. He never expected that there would be so many people here, and judging from their appearance, they seemed to be waiting for him. A trap? Astrius Salak's eyes flashed with contemplation. He suddenly had a bad premonition when he saw Moo stop among the crowd on the island. However, his hanging heart finally calmed down when he saw that most of the people on the island were middle-aged men. Whether it was the members of the Celestial Wizard clan or cultivators, the older they were, the stronger they would be. Aside from the doddering old woman on the island in front of him, the rest were all middle-aged and young men. He believed that even if the other party was very strong, it wouldn't be that strong. "Brat, did you deliberately lure me here?" Astrius Salak stopped a kilometer away from the 9th barren island and shouted in a deep voice while hovering in the air. A wicked smile outlined on the corner of Tanshio's mouth as he said, "Old geezer, your brain hasn't turned rigid yet. You can actually see that my men deliberately lured you here. No, it's not only you, but also the other experts of your Celestial Wizard clan. Look at this place. It's not bad, isn't it? This is the battlefield I chose, and it's the treasure land for me to train my troops." "Who are you?" asked Astrius Salak with a frown. "Only those who are qualified to know who I am can defeat me," said Tanshio with a smile. "Your Celestial Wizard clan may be strong, but I'll have to fight to know if you can make me pay attention to you. You're called Astrius Salak, right? The Celestial Wizard clan's Grand Elder?" Astrius Salak coldly snorted and said, "Apart from the Patriarch, no one in my clan is my match. It's the same even in the outside world. There are only a handful of people who can defeat me in this world." "You're really a frog in a well, aren't you?" Tanshio couldn't help laughing. Forget it. I don't want to waste my breath with you. I'll train my troops when a large number of experts from your clan arrive. I hope you can give me a pleasant surprise." "What arrogance!" Astrius Salak was very cautious. Despite despising the youngsters in front of him, he didn't act rashly. After a large number of experts from the Celestial Wizard clan arrived, he indifferently said, "Youngsters, you should be aware of our strength since you know who we are. I advise you to hand over the murderers of Wozniacki Salak and Wozniacki Salak, else you'll all be buried here today." Tanshio hooked his finger at him and shouted, "Bring it on if you have the ability. We can kill Wozniacki Salak and Wozniacki Salak, so we can kill you." Astrius Salak coldly snorted and said in a deep voice, "Salak, Salak, both of you go and test their strength. Remember, don't take them lightly." The two black-robed old men who previously helped Salak immediately dashed through the crowd. When they were less than 100 meters away from Tanshio and the others, they trod on the void with black mist shrouding them. Salak raised his staff and said in a deep voice, "Don't say that we're bullying you because you're young. I'll kill some of you and use your heads to make wine utensils." Tanshio slightly tilted his head and indifferently said, "Go and meet them. Remember, it doesn't matter if you can't kill them as long as you don't lose my face." "Understood." The white-robed Tang Guang trod on the void and raised his arm. The immortal sword seemed to have turned into a ribbon that constantly hovered around his fist. In the air, Tang An's enchanting body was like a fish swimming in the water. Ever since she obtained Gu Yenner's legacy, she was able to use the space barrier to conceal her body, so that no one could see her figure even if she was in front of others. Tenebrous Domain. Salak and Salak released their Tenebrous Domains at the same time. The Tenebrous Domain they released was much larger than Salak's, and the black mist was much thicker. The two skeletal monsters formed from the black fog merged into one in an instant. They were twin brothers and had been inseparable for 200 years. They would attack together when facing an enemy, and they would also attack together when facing countless enemies. Their joint attack technique could multiply the power they could unleash. "Let's kill you first to honor our people." The duo waved their staffs and manipulated the tens of meters tall skeleton monster to fiercely bombard Tang Guang. The weapon used by the skeleton monster was not a bone whip, but a bone blade composed of countless skulls. Light purification art. Tang Guang let out a faint smile and cast a seal. A light dot floated up from his fingertip, and in the blink of an eye, the light dot increased by tens of thousands of times and diluted the black mist within a radius of tens of meters. At the same time, the immortal sword that was originally revolving around his arm suddenly shot toward the sky. In a thousandth of a second, it looked like a blooming lotus flower that bloomed hundreds of meters high in the sky. Lotus Sword. Chapter 940. A dazzling sword lotus bloomed hundreds of meters high in the sky like a sun descending from the sky, radiating rays of light. The dim darkness domain was diluted by the sword beams. Tang Guang's white robe fluttered as he waved his arm downward. A long rainbow chain of sword beams fell from the sky and pierced the 10-meter-tall skeleton monster. It was this move. This was Tang Guang's strongest killing move. Just as the sword light and the bone knife clashed, a hazy figure silently appeared near the skeleton monster, as though riding on the sword light. As the turbulent space turbulence surged and spluttered, the figure appeared behind Sorav in the blink of an eye. "Watch out!" Astrius Salika's expression drastically changed in the distance, and he exclaimed. However, the hazy figure was too fast. In an instant, an immortal sword silently pierced the back of Sorav's neck. As the sword beam shone brightly, Sorav's neck was instantly split open, and even his head exploded in an instant. Boom! The skeleton monster exploded with a loud bang. Although it managed to block the sword beams shot by the sword lotus amidst the intense raging energy, it only lasted for a moment before the skeleton monster shattered and the sword beams shot toward Sorav. Darkness barrier. Sorav spurted out a mouthful of grayish-black blood and narrowly avoided the vital parts of his body. The moment his left arm was cut off by the sword beam, he instantly fled nearly 100 meters away. With a furious expression, Astrius Salik quickly dashed to Sorav's side to block the other sword beams and roared, "You fucking bastards! How dare you shamelessly sneak attack me? Celestial Wizard clansmen, kill them all. Whoever kills the most will get the biggest credit. I'll give them the Darkness Sacred Fruit when we return." The Darkness Sacred Fruit? Tens of Celestial Wizard clan's wizards went crazy. The Darkness Sacred Fruit was a sacred object of their clan, a fruit borne by the holy tree. The Darkness Sacred Tree bloomed once every 100 years and bore fruit once every 200 years, but only 10 Darkness Sacred Fruits were produced each time. It could be said that the Darkness Sacred Fruit was definitely one of the top 3 treasures of the Celestial Wizard clan. Even a newborn child who took one could have a very powerful strength in a short time. If a powerhouse took it, it could increase their cultivation by 100 years. Kill them! Clumps of black fog burst out, and many ghostly figures rushed toward Desolate Island No. 9. They were like evil spirits that had rushed out of hell. Black mist curled around them, and murderous intent surged. Tan Shio's eyes were locked on Astrius Salik. Seeing that he didn't rush at him, he immediately raised his arm, waved it forward and shouted, "Kill! Unless you die in battle, no one is allowed to retreat even half a step. The more you kill, the greater the reward." On the distant sea. As soon as Taoist Zixuan arrived with her 10 disciples, they saw a group of people fighting each other. Even though Taoist Zixuan, who had experienced several battles in the past and had seen people being killed with her own eyes, wasn't as shocked as seeing hundreds of experts fighting each other at this moment. Her eyes were fixated on the immortal swords in the hands of the Everlasting Feast Hall's members. Through her judgment, she had determined that they were definitely immortal swords. There were definitely more than 20 cultivators who possessed immortal swords. "Master!" Golden Cicada's complexion was a bit pale. His junior brothers and sisters around him had never encountered such a scene, and they also looked perturbed. Taoist Zixuan's eyes flickered as she pondered. After a few seconds of silence, she finally made up her mind and said in a deep voice, "It's Taoist Tang and the others from Nine Dragons Island. Mo saved us, and now they are fighting the Celestial Wizard clansmen. How can we just stand by and watch? Fight with me. We must help Taoist Tang and the others even if we have to die here today." Understood. Despite feeling perturbed, Golden Cicada's group of 10 still plucked up their courage and followed Taoist Zixuan to the battlefield. They were all Foundation Establishment cultivators, and their cultivation level was no worse than the Everlasting Feast Hall's Foundation Establishment experts. However, when they rushed into the battlefield and clashed with the experts of the Celestial Wizard clan, their lack of combat experience was instantly exposed. Tan Xiao, however, didn't act. Astrius Solak was also watching with cold eyes. Flashes of blades and shadows of swords filled the air, and soon, the entire 9th Barren Island was filled with figures fighting everywhere. The smell of blood soared to the sky on the Barren Island. As time went by, Astrius Solaka's brows furrowed deeper. He was keenly aware that the Celestial Wizard clansmen were suffering more and more casualties as the battle continued. How is this possible? These youngsters aren't weak, but how can they have such rich combat experience? The most frightening thing is that the longer they fight, the stronger the power they can unleash. They can even easily get rid of some of their inexperience. Astrius Solak clenched his fists tightly. His eyes suddenly fell on Tan Xiao, and a word Tan Xiao had been emphasizing before echoed in his mind: training the troops. He used my Celestial Wizard clansmen to train his troops? Doesn't he know that it's very difficult to train an expert? Even if the situation is favorable to them and they can kill all the experts of my Celestial Wizard clan, they will still suffer huge losses if the battle goes on at this level. Could it be that so many experts are worthless in his eyes? At this moment, Astrius Solak regretted shedding all pretense of cordiality with the enemies in front of him in such a short time. That youngster didn't care about the lives and deaths of his men, but he couldn't ignore it. It must be noted that it was very difficult to train the experts of the Celestial Wizard clan. In just 10 minutes, more than a dozen of his clan's experts were killed and dozens of them were wounded. Only 4 of the enemy died. Staring fixedly at Tan Xiao, Astrius Solak shouted in a deep voice, "Young man, my clan has thousands of people and more than 100 grand wizards. The number of experts who came here this time is less than 1/10. If you're really not afraid of our clan turning out in full force to retaliate, then just let them fight." "Are you threatening me?" Tan Xiao sneered. "I'm afraid of everything, but I'm not afraid of being threatened. To tell you the truth, I only have a few experts under me, perhaps less than 1/10 of your Celestial Wizard clan. But so what? Only cultivators who have gone through slaughter can be regarded as real powerhouses. They died in battle because they were not skilled enough, but those who survived will only get stronger in the future." "You're a madman," roared Astrius Solak. "A madman, huh?" Tan Xiao sneered. "You're right. I'm indeed a madman. It's because I've killed too many people and experienced too much slaughter. I've long been indifferent to life and death on the battlefield. This is an era of peace, and it's not easy for me to find some opponents for my men. Now that your clan has come to me, how can I waste such a good opportunity?" Astrius Solak clenched his fists and raised the magic staff in his hand. He finally couldn't help but release his Dark World Killer move and rush toward the fighting crowd. Tan Xiao let out a wild laugh and slashed his arm forward. The divine sword turned into a 100-meter-long torrent that split the rolling black mist. Amidst the sword energy, Tan Xiao instantly appeared in front of Astrius Solak. Lightning, fire, wind, rain. As he cast a series of hand seals, lightning struck down from the sky, flames appeared out of thin air and turned into a sea of fire in the blink of an eye, tornadoes formed and wreaked havoc, and strong corrosive raindrops fluttered along with the dark clouds. This is? Astrius Solaka's complexion drastically changed. He felt as if he had appeared in a magical world, and these magical energies posed a huge threat to him. Spells? Astrius Salik bit the tip of his tongue and waved his magic staff faster. As the black mist protected him, he instantly released the Grim Reaper scythe and fiercely bombarded Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu laughed and manipulated the divine sword to attack without hesitation. Kacha! The sound of an eggshell breaking was heard as a huge energy shockwave overturned many experts fighting in the surroundings. The shockwave even left a 100-meter-long and 7-meter-deep chasm on the deserted island. Astrius Salik spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his complexion instantly turned pale. His body shivered as he looked at the broken Grim Reaper scythe. He was so distressed that he nearly shed tears. This was a magic tool. His father risked his life to obtain it and gave it to him. Then, he refined it for more than 300 years. With the Grim Reaper scythe in his possession, his strength skyrocketed. It could be said that this Grim Reaper scythe was the thing he cared about the most. But, yet, the Grim Reaper scythe was smashed by the opponent's sword? How was this possible? Glaring at Tan Xiu with hatred, Astrius Salik angrily roared, "Celestial Wizard Clansman, the other party has set up a trap here in advance. We'll be at a disadvantage if we fight them here. Heed my order and evacuate immediately." In a flash, the experts of the Celestial Wizard clan lost their fighting spirit. Many of them had clearly seen the fight between Astrius Salik and Tan Xiu. Never did they expect that the great elder they admired would be defeated by a young man. Even the great elder's life artifact, the Grim Reaper scythe, was destroyed. Run! Despite the intense humiliation they felt, their lives were more important. Even the great elder didn't have the heart to continue fighting. If they continued to fight, only death would await them. Quickly, dozens of Celestial Wizard clansmen fled with injuries. However, the Foundation establishment stage experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall were like a dog's skin plaster. They were like maggots attached to the bone, stubbornly entangled them, making it impossible for them to escape to a safe place in a short time. A smile crept up on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He was very satisfied with his fierce men. After more than 10 minutes of fighting, nearly 20 Celestial Wizard clansmen died, while only 4 of the Everlasting Feast Hall's experts died. Everyone heed my order. Hunt them down. Tan Xiu took the lead and chased after the Celestial Wizard clansmen as fast as a meteor. The divine sword he unleashed was like a death talisman. Each of his attacks would severely injure some Celestial Wizard experts. Even if he couldn't kill them in a short time, it greatly delayed their escape. Chapter 941. As the saying goes, a defeated army is like a landslide. The Celestial Wizard clan's Grand Elder was injured and lost his fighting spirit, which directly affected the Celestial Wizard clansmen's fighting spirit and combat effectiveness. As they retreated and fled, their blood dyed the seawater red and their corpses turned into fodder for the fishes. Kill! Taoist Zixuan, who was ruthless in her pursuit of the stray dogs, didn't hold back and unleashed all kinds of divine abilities, causing great damage to the Celestial Wizard clansmen. If it wasn't for Astrius Salik, the Celestial Wizard clan's Grand Elder, who was seriously injured to block the joint pursuit of Tan Xiu and Taoist Zixuan, only a handful of Celestial Wizard clansmen would have been able to escape this sea area. On the 13th deserted island, Tan Xiu stopped his men from continuing the pursuit and let the more than 20 Celestial Wizard clansmen disappear into the distant sea. In this battle, he had lost many of his subordinates, but every one of them who had experienced the battle had a stronger killing intent than before, and their auras were also stronger than before. On! Tan Xiu looked at the neat team in front of him and the blood-stained bodies of his men. Then he suddenly shouted in a deep voice, "I'll leave this interspatial ring to you. Put the corpses of our fallen brothers inside it. Once we return to Nine Dragons Island, we'll immediately set up a cemetery and bury all our fallen brothers in it. I'll arrange it as soon as I return." Mo On took the ring and nodded repeatedly. Tan Xiu turned to look at Ji Qimei and asked, "Have you collected the things I asked you to?" "I've collected them all, Venerable Lord," replied Ji Qimei respectfully. "Also, I've collected the souls of the 2 whole unitary sect disciples who died in the battle. How are you going to deal with them? Tan Xiu glanced at Daoist Zixuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the reef and silently recuperating. Then he indifferently said, "Return them to them. We're comrades who have gone through trials and tribulations together, after all." "But Venerable Lord, I think we should," interjected Ji Qime. Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt her and said in a deep voice, "We need cultivation resources, but we don't need to use the souls of our comrades as bargaining chips. Ji Qime, you must remember that there are some things that you can do and some things that you can't. You must measure them with a ruler in your heart and consider them with the wisdom of the world. Today, if the whole unitary sect watches without doing anything, even if my goal of training troops is achieved, I'm afraid the losses will be even greater." Ji Qime respectfully replied, "This subordinate will bear it in mind." "My lord, I don't understand what you mean by your last sentence." Tan Xiu replied in a deep voice, "Survival of the fittest is a natural selection. I need my subordinates to experience bloody battles to grow up on the edge of life and death, but that doesn't mean their lives are cheap. In my heart they were my men, but they were also my brothers. In the future, on the battlefield, they might be my second or third life. Being able to increase their strength and avoid death as much as possible is the most important thing." Ji Qime said, "Boss, their lives are given by Master. Their achievements are also cultivated by Master and you. It's only right and proper for them to live and die for you. They're just ants in my eyes, and I believe they're also not much stronger than ants in your eyes. Why did you—" Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt her and coldly said, "Ji Qime, there's an old saying in Huaxia that one must never forget one's roots. Everyone is an ant-like existence that grows up step by step. I am, and so are you. The moment we're born, we're babies crying piteously for food. If other powerhouses had the same thinking as you, would you have been able to live until now? Would you have such high achievements?" Ji Qime calmly looked at Tan Xiu and suddenly understood Tan Xiu's true thoughts. A smile appeared on the corner of her eyes. She suddenly felt that this affectionate and righteous lord seemed to be completely different from the supremacy in the immortal world. Although the supreme being rarely slaughtered the weak, his eyes were always filled with disdain, as though his heart was a block of ice. But now, the supreme being's heart was a ball of fire. Although his strength was still very weak, it wouldn't be long before the fire in his heart would burn and burn everything in this vast world. Ji Qime looked at Tan Xiu and suddenly asked in a low voice, "Lord, may this subordinate be so bold as to ask you something? What is your cultivation?" "Mind cultivation." Tan Xiu looked up at the clear sky. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through the vault of heaven and see through the world of mortals. He murmured, "My heart is the heavens, and I am the heavens. People live a life of great freedom and freedom. Whether it's humans, immortals, gods, demons, ghosts, or monsters, none can bind my heart. Even if it's a shackle on my head, this lord will sooner or later poke a hole in it." Ji Qime's eyes flickered as she respectfully saluted and said, "Lord, you were once a supreme in the immortal world. You'll definitely reach the summit of the immortal world in the future." The summit of the immortal world? The position of supreme? Tan Xiu quickly converged his mind and gradually immersed himself in the universe inside his dantian. Ever since he made a breakthrough in his cultivation, he could faintly sense the existence of a life force. Therefore, he inferred that once he made another breakthrough in his strength, he would be able to completely sense its existence and could even make it undergo a great change. Heavenly Path Universe Tree. If he could have a Heavenly Path Universe tree grow strong in his inner world and grow to the level of that divine tree, it would be easy for him to enter the God realm. At that time, he would no longer have to conquer the immortal, demon, and demon spirit realms, but the higher God realm. After a long time, Tan Xiu looked at the neatly arranged team and said in a deep voice, "Ji Qime, give each member who participated in the battle a holy healing pill. Additionally, give them medicinal pills according to their military merits. Tell them that apart from Tang Guang, Tang An, and Gu Xiaoxue, Whoever breaks through to the Golden Core stage first will become the commander of the Everlasting Feast Hall's core disciples. Understood. Ji Qimei replied and flashed to the front of the team. Tan Xiu then walked toward Daoist Zixuan. Upon seeing her open her eyes and stop recuperating, Tan Xiu handed over the pendant Ji Qimei had just given him and indifferently said, "Here's a gift for you." Daoist Zixuan's eyes were a bit red. After receiving the jade pendant, she glanced at the other 8 disciples around her and said bitterly, "Thank you, Daoist Tang." "Don't you want to know what this gift is?" asked Tan Xiu indifferently. Daoist Zixuan stared blankly and immediately asked, "What is this?" "There's a method to collect souls in the inheritance I got," said Tan Xiu. "I'll give the souls of Jin Yunzi and Jin Yanzi to you for the sake of your whole unitary sect's disciples fighting side by side with my people. In the future, if someone from your whole unitary sect breaks through to the crossing tribulation stage and goes through the 3 and 9 lightning tribulation, you can reconstruct their bodies and wake them up." "What?" Daoist Zixuan's eyes were filled with disbelief. She quickly raised her hand and stared at the jade pendant in her palm. Her breathing turned rapid. "You mean this jade pendant contains the souls of Jin Yunzi and Jin Yanzi? Their 3 souls and 7 spirits are all there? And there's hope for them to be resurrected in the future?" "That's right," said Tan Xiu. "But if your whole unitary sect wants to get the method to resurrect them, you'll need to exchange it with something. I can give you their souls, but you'll have to fight for the method yourself." "Daoist Tang, what do you need?" asked Daoist Zixuan with an ecstatic expression. "Don't you know what I need?" asked Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Daoist Zixuan stared blankly for a moment. Then, a look of understanding appeared on her face and she said with all seriousness, "I understand. You can rest assured that I'll do my best to meet your needs no matter the price. I only hope that I can resurrect my 2 disciples in the future." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "The battle between us and the Celestial Wizard clan has come to an end for the time being. They suffered heavy losses this time, so I'm afraid they won't easily attack us again. You need to return to your sect, so don't delay any longer. I'll be staying in 9 Dragons Island for the next 2 months, waiting for your arrival. We'll bring more cultivation resources in the shortest time possible," said Daoist Zixuan. "However, I have another request that I hope Daoist Tang can agree to." "Speak," said Tan Xiu calmly. With a bit of expectation, Daoist Zixuan said, "If my guess is correct, the swords you and your men absorbed into your bodies should be immortal swords of a higher level than magic tools. If my whole unitary sect can come up with more cultivation resources, can you give us some immortal swords in exchange?" Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and lightly said, "You really have a big appetite, Daoist Zixuan. I'm sure you're very clear about what kind of weapon an immortal sword is. How many cultivation resources do you think I need to exchange for an immortal sword?" This, Daoist Zixuan was speechless. She naturally knew what kind of weapon the immortal world was. Such an immortal world was definitely the most precious treasure that all cultivators on Earth yearned for. Even a mountain of gold and silver couldn't buy it. Her whole unitary sect did have a lot of cultivation resources, but it was probably far from enough to exchange for an immortal sword. "Forget it. I won't make things difficult for you," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "I'll make a list of cultivation resources later. If your whole unitary sect can gather the amount I need, I can give you 2 immortal swords in exchange." "All right. Our sect will definitely get the cultivation resources on Earth and will trade with you," said Daoist Zixuan firmly. Half a day later, Tan Xiu led the surviving core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall back to 9 Dragons Island. But as soon as he came back, he issued an order to build an airtight surveillance zone within 200 nautical miles around 9 Dragons Island. Anyone who appeared within 200 nautical miles must be detected immediately. After giving the order, he then returned to the palace and continued to immerse himself in cultivation. 3,000 of the most outstanding children would soon be sent here. He needed to seize the time to restore his strength to its peak and then arrange an array within an array to create an excellent training ground. Chapter 942. At Saipan's port. In the dead of night, ghostly figures emerged from the sea and appeared on the shore, dripping wet. As the smoke in the air gradually converged, more than a dozen black-robed experts of the Celestial Wizard clan gathered together. They were all wounded and several of them were on the verge of death. When they appeared beside their companions, they immediately fell to the ground. Miserable! Miserable! Astrius Salika's hand that was holding the staff slightly trembled. The intense killing intent emanating from him caused the surrounding temperature to drop by several degrees, as though he had turned into a human-shaped ice cube. Salav, Salik, and 2 elders of the Celestial Wizard clan were killed in battle. This was definitely a heavy loss. For hundreds of years, many members of the Celestial Wizard clan had died in battle. Whether it was the battle against the Pyramid or the Crusader Consortium's powerhouses, none of them had ever suffered such a serious loss. Adding the 2 patriarchs, Soroti and Sorotu, who were killed before, the Celestial Wizard clan had lost 4 patriarchs and dozens of elites in just over half a month. Grand Elder! Clenching his fists, Salika's body was shrouded in black mist. His old face looked ferocious as he said in a deep voice, "My brother and so many elites of our clan are dead. We must take revenge for such a deep blood feud. Give me a sacred fruit of darkness and give me a few months. I'm willing to lead the Magi Palace's Blood God Legion to exterminate all the enemies." Astrius Salik angrily glared at him and snapped, "Do you think I don't want to take revenge? But the enemies are too powerful, and the whole unitary sect is also involved. It's impossible to exterminate them unless we use all the strength of our clan." Salika's breathing stagnated. He recalled how powerful the enemies were, as well as their terrifying magical abilities. He was at a loss for words for a while. Grand Elder Astrius Salik was stronger than him. Even if he took a sacred fruit of darkness, he wouldn't be able to reach the Grand Elder's level. Even if he led the Magi Palace's Blood God Legion, it was impossible for him to exterminate all the enemies. But he was not a gentleman if he didn't take revenge. His own brothers had been killed, and a large number of his clansmen had died tragically. Was this not going to be avenged? A cold glint flashed in Astrius Salika's eyes as he stared at the southern sea in the night and said in a cold voice, "The blood feud of our clansmen must be avenged, but we need to plan well. If we continue to fight head-on, I'm afraid our clansmen will suffer heavy losses even if we can kill all the enemies. Let's return to the clan grounds first and discuss this with the clan leader." "Awit?" Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said in a deep voice, "I might have an idea, Grand Elder." Astrius Salik was confused. "What idea?" "Since we can't fight them head-on for our revenge," Soraj said in a sinister voice, "we can't fight them head-on, so we might as well divert the disaster to someone else. Nowadays, the world's 3 major organizations, Pyramid, Crusader Consortium, and the Stygian Club, were competing for all kinds of resources. We may belong to the Stygian Club, but our clansmen are independent existences. We don't need to participate unless the Stygian Club faces a life-and-death situation. If we spread the rumor that there are treasures in that sea area, I'm afraid the 3 major organizations will rush there to explore it. As long as those people are still in that sea area, I'm afraid there will be a conflict. When the time comes, we'll let the 3 organizations fight them and we'll be the fishermen to reap the benefits." Astrius Salika's eyes lit up and he clapped. "That's a good idea. It's definitely a good idea. We'll have an opportunity to take advantage of them as long as both sides suffer. In the end, if the Stygian Club suffers a big loss and asks our clan for help, we can also push the boat with the current and agree. When a large number of Celestial Wizard experts return to this sea area, it'll be a good opportunity for us to slaughter those enemies." "That's right." Salik nodded heavily. "The most important thing is that as long as the Stygian Club asks our clan for help, they must give us a lot of benefits. Even if the battle breaks out again and we suffer losses, the benefits the Stygian Club can give us can offset it. I think it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone." Astrius Salik nodded in satisfaction and said in a deep voice, "It's a feasible plan, but we must do it secretly. Let's return to the clan first and discuss it with the Patriarch and the other elders. We'll spread the news and then watch the tigers fight." "All right, let's go back." Solak nodded and then looked at the others. 9 Dragons Island. It took Tan Shio half a day to replenish his consumed primal chaos force. He even found that the primal chaos force inside his body was faintly improving despite the huge consumption. Therefore, he directly took out a demon stone and began to absorb the magic power inside it. It only took him 3 days to fully absorb the magic power contained in the demon stone. That planet is bigger now. A satisfied look appeared on Tan Shio's face. He jumped off the bed and went to the bathroom to take a shower. After changing into clean clothes, he then appeared in the northeast area of 9 Dragons Island. Barracks. After the renovation, the northeast, northwest, and southeast areas were all built according to the scale of barracks, each of which could accommodate 20,000 soldiers. Additionally, a barracks was also built in the center of 9 Dragons Island, but the area was much smaller and could only accommodate 1,000 soldiers. Standing on the roof of a 6-story building, Tan Shio glanced at the surrounding environment and pondered about the array arrangement. The array within the array had a superimposed effect. 9 Dragons Island's world's spiritual energy was exceptionally rich, at least a dozen times richer than the outside world. But it was still not enough for Tan Shio. If he wanted to compare it to the blessed lands in the immortal world, it would need to be at least a dozen or even 100 times richer. Spirit Gathering Array, Spirit Tempering Array, and Star Devouring Array. The entire island's protective array has a very strong spiritual energy gathering effect. The world's spiritual energy within a radius of 1,000 miles will be continuously absorbed here. Therefore, there's no need to arrange a Spirit Gathering Array. However, the Spirit Tempering Array is an array that extracts the quality of the spiritual energy. It must be arranged if I want to make the spiritual energy here pure enough. As for the Star Devouring Array, the star force is also a kind of spiritual energy and has a strong compatibility with the world's spiritual energy. If the star force is also absorbed and refined by the Spirit Tempering Array, it will still be of great benefit to cultivators. That's it. After thinking it through, Tan Shio immediately began to arrange the Spirit Tempering Array and the Star Devouring Array. It was much easier for Tan Shio to arrange these 2 small arrays. It only took him half a day's effort to arrange the 2 arrays perfectly. Drink some water, master. Gu Yin had arrived here half a day ago. Upon seeing that Tan Shio had finished arranging the arrays, she immediately ran over and handed a pink cup to Tan Shio. Tan Shio smiled and stroked her soft black hair. He took the cup and drank 2 mouthfuls of water. Then he said, "If you don't count me and Ji Chime, you should be the 3rd most powerful person on 9 Dragons Island, right? You're at the early stage of Golden Core and you're about to break through to the mid-stage. Darling Inin, it won't take long for you to break through to the late stage of Golden Core if you keep cultivating at this speed. You might even break through to the nascent soul stage in the next few years." Gu Yin raised her delicate and cute face and smilingly said, "My first goal is to ascend and become an immortal, master. Didn't you say that I must go back in the future? Inin will follow you no matter where you go, master." Tan Shio felt warm inwardly and smilingly said, "Inin is really sensible. I want to learn from eldest senior sister." Gu Yin shook her head. "Master, Elder Ji has told Inin a lot of things, especially about eldest senior sister. I admire eldest senior sister very much, and I like her very, very much. When will you let me see eldest senior sister again?" "Soon," Tan Shio said with a faint smile. "Are you going to take me to Jingmen Island?" Gu Yin was pleasantly surprised. "I'll go back tomorrow." Tan Shio shook his head and said, "I'll stay in Tea Country for a few days before returning to Jingmen Island to prepare to move the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ here. When the time comes, your eldest senior sister will stay on 9 Dragons Island and you can see her whenever you want." Gu Yin's eyes lit up as she said, "That's great. If that's the case, I can ask eldest senior sister about cultivation. I heard from Elder Ji that eldest senior sister is very powerful and is an immortal." Tan Shio was stunned, then nodded with a bitter smile. He discovered, as a master, he was very weak, but his eldest disciple was very powerful. As a result, this disciple in front of him felt that his eldest disciple was the #1 expert. I have to speed up my cultivation. Even if I can't catch up to Yener in a short time, I can't slack off. Only by becoming stronger can I better protect the people I care about in the future. Tan Xiu raised his head to look at the sky. Above the night sky, in the higher plane of the immortal world, there were his mortal enemies. If he didn't get rid of those enemies, his Tao heart wouldn't be complete. After a long while, alone, Tan Xiu arrived at the specially built reception area on the island. As he passed through the streets, he arrived in front of the buildings on the edge of the sea and looked at one of the villas. Mr. Tang. Xingluan's closest person, the delicate woman, was the first to notice Tan Xiu and quickly came over to greet him. Is Xingluan here? Asked Tan Xiu with a nod. Mr. Tang, our young master has been waiting for you here since we can't walk around the island at will, said the delicate woman. Tan Xiu nodded and entered the villa's courtyard. He saw Xingluan sitting cross-legged among the flowers in the courtyard, surrounded by a faint black mist and holding 2 demon stones in his hands. Xingluan! Cried Tan Xiu. Xingluan opened his eyes. When he saw that it was Tan Xiu, he immediately put away the 2 demon stones and strode toward Tan Xiu, asking, Are you done with your business, Mr. Tang? It's almost done. Tan Xiu nodded. Get ready. We'll leave 9 Dragons Island tomorrow and go to Tea Country to solve your big brother's problem. Chapter 943. Xingluan's eyes lit up and a pleasantly surprised look appeared on his face. He excitedly rubbed his hands and said, Great! I've been waiting for this day for a long time. I can leave at any time as long as you say the word. Actually, I'd really like to help your big brother if it wasn't for our previous agreement, said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Maybe it's because he's a few years older than you, so there's a gap between you and him. I know I'm not as good as Xingguo in many aspects, but there's one thing I'm better than him, said Xingluan awkwardly. That's why I'm the final winner. What aspect? Asked Tan Xiu curiously. Luck, answered Xingluan with a smile. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and immediately said with a smile, You're right. You're the first one to meet me, which means your luck is better than your big brother's. I'm a man who values friendship and righteousness. Even though your big brother came to me and asked me to stay away from the matter between you and your brother, I still have to fulfill my promise to you. Even though he has given me the jade pig I need. What did you say? Exclaimed Xingluan. My big brother has given you the jade pig? Tan Xiu patted his shoulder and said, You don't have to worry about it. He gave me the jade pig and I promised him that I'll stay away from the grudges between you two in Tea Country. If he could kill you in Tea Country, you can only blame your bad luck. Unfortunately, he couldn't kill you in the end. Xingluan suddenly recalled the night when Tan Xiu had just left Tea Country. It was the night when his big brother, Xingguo, led a large number of experts to besiege him. At that time, he would have died if he hadn't escaped through the secret passage under the villa with some of his closest men. Even though he managed to escape that day, he was still pursued relentlessly. On the 3rd night, if it weren't for the 2 mysterious men who suddenly appeared and killed a large number of Xingguo's men, he would have been dead by now. However, he already knew the identity of those 2 mysterious men. They were Tan Xiu's men. Suddenly, I found a strange situation when I just came to this island, Mr. Tang, said Xingluan. I don't know if I should tell you or not. Tan Xiu said, Speak. I just came here and found that there's some sorcery energy on this island that hasn't dissipated yet, said Xingluan. But this kind of witchcraft energy is different from the witchcraft energy cultivated by our Dark Shaman clan. It's purer and somewhat similar to the witchcraft energy left behind by the Celestial Wizard clan. Do you know the Celestial Wizard clan? Asked Tan Xiu with a slightly moved expression. Of course I do, said Xingluan. I also know a lot about it. The Celestial Wizard clan's territory is in Poland, Europe. They have a large population, dozens of times more than our Dark Wizard clan. Moreover, the Celestial Wizard clan has a lot of powerhouses. With my current strength, I can only be considered as an ordinary expert in the clan. No, maybe not even a normal one. What's the relationship between your Dark Shaman clan and the Celestial Wizard clan? Asked Tan Xiu. There's a deep relationship between them, said Singluan. As a matter of fact, my Dark Shaman clan was separated from the Celestial Wizard clan about 700 to 800 years ago. At that time, my Dark Shaman clan's ancestor violated the clan's rules and was facing execution by the Celestial Wizard clan. Therefore, my ancestor led dozens of clansmen of our bloodline to carve a bloody path and finally took root in Country T. It's just that our clan's elite clansmen have been dying for 700 to 800 years, and our witchcraft arts can't be compared to before. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and asked, "So, how do you feel about the Celestial Wizard clan now?" "I don't feel anything." Singluan shook his head and said, "As long as they don't provoke us, my Dark Shaman clan won't have anything to do with them. After all, if it weren't for our ancestors carving out a bloody path in the past, I'm afraid there wouldn't be any descendants of our Dark Shaman clan." Tan Xiao nodded and said, "The Celestial Wizard clan is my archenemy. I still have a lot of things to deal with, so I won't deal with them for the time being. But if they dare to come and cause trouble again, I'll kill every last one of them. It's great that you don't want to have anything to do with the Celestial Wizard clan anymore." "You have enmity with the Celestial Wizard clan? What's going on?" "The Celestial Wizard clan came to Nine Dragons Island and wanted to occupy this place," said Tan Xiao calmly. "But 2 of them were killed in the conflict. Hence, a large number of Celestial Wizard clan's experts came and fought my people in the nearby sea area." "What happened in the end?" asked Singluan hurriedly. "The Celestial Wizard clan's Grand Elder led a lot of experts, but my people eventually slaughtered them miserably. Only a dozen of them managed to escape." Tan Xiao sneered. Singluan stared at Tan Xiao with a dumbfounded expression. He had heard about the strength of the Celestial Wizard clan's Grand Elder. He knew that the Grand Elder was a terrifying figure. Even his father, the strongest expert in the entire Dark Shaman clan, was no match for him. Singluan wanted to say something, but his mind was in a mess and he didn't know what to say. Tan Xiao patted his shoulder again and smilingly said, "Singluan, this matter has nothing to do with you or your Dark Shaman clan. Sometimes, staying out of trouble and protecting yourself is the wisest decision. Just continue your cultivation. Join me tomorrow and we'll go to Bangkok. Aside from killing your big brother, your father should also abdicate his position. I'm looking forward to having more dealings with you as the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan in the future." Singluan understood that Tan Xiao was right, so he firmly nodded and said, "You can rest assured that my Dark Shaman clan will always be your closest friend as long as I'm alive." Alright. Tea Country, Bangkok. Amidst the towering mountains, the Dark Shaman clan's young master, Sinquo, was walking toward the complex with a cold and gloomy expression along with dozens of people. Many of the Dark Shaman clan's warriors glanced at Sinquo with worried expressions. In the depths of the complex, inside a low-rise house near an altar, the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan, Singchuo, was shrouded in black mist. Although the black mist covered his face, his eyes were particularly spirited. A glint flashed in his eyes as he watched Sinquo walk around the altar and enter from the outside. "Are you in a bad mood, Sinquo?" An erratic voice came out of Singchuo's mouth. "I can't hide the matter between me and Singluan from you, can I, father?" Sinquo nodded. "He wants to kill me, so I must give him a taste of his own medicine." Singchuo was silent for a long time. Then he sighed and said, "You're all adults, and I understand what you're thinking. There's no room for negotiation between you now, so there's nothing I can do. I'm the patriarch of the Dark Shaman clan, so I can't be partial to either you or Singluan. So, life and death are decreed by fate. You can solve it yourselves." "You know the power I have, father," said Sinquo. "More than half of the Dark Shaman clan listens to my orders. But Singluan has a relationship with the leader of a mysterious force in China, and he wants to get rid of me with the help of that force. Our Dark Shaman clan will suffer heavy losses even if I emerge victorious in the final battle between us. That's why I need your help." A chilling light flashed in Singchuo's eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "Is the other party really that strong?" "Yes, he is," said Sinquo. "I led my men to besiege Singluan and his men a few days ago, but only 2 mysterious men appeared and rescued all of them. Even my men suffered heavy losses. Singchuo was silent for a long time before he asked, "How do you need my help?" "Issue an order to return to the clan. Tell Singluan to come back immediately," said Singguo. "The issue between us can be easily solved as long as he returns to Bangkok. That Huaxia man promised me that as long as I can defeat Singluan before he finishes his business, he will no longer be our enemy. He even said that he has a very important deal to make with us." "What deal?" asked Singchuo. "I don't know yet, but it should be beneficial to us." Singguo shook his head. "If that's the case, then I'll issue an order to return to the clan." Singchuo nodded and said, "As for the result, it's up to you." Ponko. Li Juren was sitting on the sofa in his office, looking at the two angry middle-aged men in front of him who exuded a strong and oppressive aura. He secretly groaned inside. Overbearing. The two men in front of him were too overbearing. It was because he didn't help them collect enough raw jade materials, and because he gave some to Tan Xiu. As a result, these two men came to him with murderous intent and wanted to denounce him. "I can't do anything about it. The price of raw jade materials on the market has almost doubled compared to before. Even so, a large number of jewelers are still desperately buying raw jade materials. Currently, some small businessmen in the jade business were facing a crisis of insufficient supply due to the shortage of jade raw materials. Both of you, I need time. Give me at least half a month. Even if I have to rob at that time, I will give you enough raw jade materials." Li Juren wiped the sweat from his forehead and said with a wry smile. The two middle-aged men exchanged glances and the aura they released weakened a bit. One of them coldly snorted and said, "We can't delay it for another half a month. We can't afford to waste our time. 7 days. I'll give you 7 days. If you can gather all the raw jade materials we need within 7 days, we'll naturally fulfill our promise to you. But don't blame us for being ruthless if you can't do it in 7 days. We'll make you taste regret." Li Juren gulped and helplessly said, "I can only say that I'll try my best. It's useless even if you kill me if I really can't do it in the end." The middle-aged man snorted coldly. He got up and said, "We'll come again 7 days later. I hope you'll give us a good result then." Li Juren wanted to stand up and see them off, but his legs were slightly trembling. He sat on the sofa and waved his hand, saying, "Take care." Chapter 944. It was a scorching summer, yet the world was as hot as a furnace, as though it was about to steam people alive. The bustling port was bustling with people, and all kinds of ships were either docking or sailing away. Boss Tom Reggie, who had been notified in advance, had been waiting for a long time with several of his trusted subordinates. Ever since he followed Tan Xiu to Nine Dragons Island a few days ago and witnessed the strength of Tan Xiu and the everlasting feast hall's experts, he had made up his mind to follow Tan Xiu to the death, so as to obtain a cultivation technique that could make him stronger. He came back a few days ago because he got a very important piece of news. Tan Xiu walked to the front of Tom Reggie and glanced around, asking indifferently, "How's the task I assigned you?" "We've confirmed the identity of the other party, but we've been biding our time to avoid alerting them," said Tom Reggie. Mr. Song told me to wait for you to return to Saipan before making a decision." Tang Xiu narrowed his eyes and sneered, "Since the other party still hasn't given up on spying on me, then we'll pull out this nail. However, acting during the day will cause a commotion, so we'll act tonight to avoid trouble." "That's right, you should know where Uncle Song lives, right? Tell me the address, I need to visit him." After telling Tan Xiu the address, Tom Reggie hesitated and said, "But Mr. Song has people from the Darkwind at his place, boss. You'll appear in the Darkwind's line of sight again if you rashly visit him. Why don't I send someone to inform Mr. Song to meet you somewhere else?" "The Darkwind is the world's largest intelligence agency." Tan Xiu sneered. "Rumor has it that they have a huge number of intelligence agents and are all-pervasive. Who can guarantee that the news of my return to Saipan hasn't reached their branch the moment I set foot on this shore? There's no need to hide since I'm already here. Visiting Uncle Song openly is more likely to dispel their suspicions." Tom Reggie pondered for a moment before he nodded and said, "You're right. Hiding will only arouse suspicion. But if the Dark Wind knows you're here, I'm afraid they'll guess about me and Mr. Song. Do you think the Darkwind's intel personnel will take the initiative to tell them about your private meeting with Song Guangwei if your original backer didn't take the initiative to contact them? Asked Tan Xiu indifferently. I know something about the Darkwind organization, more or less. Tom Reggie shook his head and said, they won't send intel unless they take the initiative to buy it. However, there is also a possibility that it will expose what I am worried about. Tan Xiu asked, what is the possibility? My original backer is a member of the Darkwind, said Tom Reggie. Tan Xiu's expression shifted, but he immediately shook his head and said, he won't easily rely on any civilian force since he's able to become a ruling official. Otherwise, no matter how secretive he is, there will be a day when his tail will be exposed, and the government above Saipan will not sit idly by. You're right. Tom Reggie nodded. But still be careful. I won't follow you when you visit Mr. Song. You don't need to follow me. Tan Xiu chuckled. Just prepare well. You'll play a big role when Uncle Song deals with the big boss of Saipan. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Tom Reggie nodded. Tan Xiu nodded and ordered Tom Reggie to bring Singluan's men to the Lao Bei resort. After that, he took Mo, Jin Shi, and the rest of his 11 personal guards to Song Guanghui's residence. Tang Guang and Tang An also followed Tan Xiu back from Nine Dragons Island. But just like Jin Shi and the others, they didn't directly follow Tan Xiu but stayed nearby instead. They wouldn't take the initiative to appear unless Tan Xiu summoned them. Jinla Mansion. It was located near Hepburn Avenue, which had a beautiful environment and convenient transportation. The residents who could live in this area were all high-ranking officials, nobles, and people with great power. The Jinla Mansion was the most luxurious mansion in the city. The number of soldiers stationed around the mansion all year round was no less than dozens. However, some of them were in the light while some were in the dark. For you, this is a private official residence. Irrelevant people must leave at once. A big man in military uniform immediately shouted after Tan Xiu and Mo appeared at the entrance of the Jinla Mansion. At the same time, 4 other soldiers armed with guns also looked over. Is this General Sin Hui's mansion? Tan Xiu calmly said. I've met General Sin Hui once, and we can be considered as close friends. Please inform him that Tang Xiu has come to visit. That's right. The soldier observed Tan Xiu a few times. Then, he raised his gun and coldly snorted. You think you're qualified to visit the general's mansion? If everyone is like you, visiting the general's home after seeing him, won't his mansion become a downtown area? Leave at once, else don't blame us for taking you down and denouncing you. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows. He took out his mobile and said, since you refuse to accommodate me, then I'll call General Sin Hui directly. Is that all right? A disdainful look flashed in the soldier's eyes, but he didn't force Tan Xiu to leave. Instead, he observed Tan Xiu to guard against Tan Xiu's sudden attack. Tan Xiu dialed Song Guangwei's private number. After a few rings, the call was picked up and Song Guangwei's hearty laughter came out of the phone. You're back, Tan Xiu? Yeah. I just returned to Saipan, so I came to your mansion to visit you, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But I was stopped by the soldiers at the gate of your mansion. Song Guangwei was surprised and said, You came to my house? All right. Give the phone to the guards at the gate. I'll tell them about it. Also, I'm still busy with official business outside, so I'm afraid it'll take me 2 hours to get home. Your aunt is at home, so I'll call her right away and tell her to entertain you well. All right, I'll wait for you, Tan Xiu replied. He then handed the phone to the soldier and said, It's a call from General Sin Hui. He wants to talk to you. The soldier took the phone with a skeptical expression. Just as he spoke, Song Guangwei's voice came out of the phone. The soldier nodded and his expression turned respectful. He finally hung up the phone and looked at Tan Xiu apologetically, saying, I'm really sorry about that, Mr. Tang. I didn't know that you're the general's honored guest, so I was rude to you. The general has instructed me to invite you to wait for him at home. Tan Xiu nodded and led Mo into the mansion under the watchful eyes of the soldiers. The Jinla mansion occupied a large area, at least several acres of land. Just the front courtyard alone took Tan Xiao and Mo Au several minutes to walk. At this time, a young officer in military uniform came out of the courtyard. When he saw Tan Xiao and Mo Au, he curiously asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Tan Xiao from China," said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. "You're able to move about freely in the Jinla residence, and you're still so young. In addition, you look somewhat similar to Uncle Song, so I thought you should be Uncle Song's son, right? I just didn't know you were Song Xiang? Or Song Yang." The young officer said in surprise, "You are the Tan Xiao that my father mentioned? I am Song Xiang." Tan Xiao stretched out his hand and said with a smile, "Look at your heroic posture and imposing appearance. Using a Chinese saying, like father, like son. You should be half a year older than me, so I'll call you Brother Xiang. Nice to meet you." Song Xiang quickly turned his head and looked around. After finding that there was no one else around, he shook hands with Tan Xiao and said with a somewhat amiable look in his eyes, "Brother Tan Xiao, my father has told me about you and Uncle Tang countless times. I'm very glad that you can visit our home. Please, let's talk inside." Tan Xiao nodded with a smile. He took out a small gift box from his pocket and handed it to Song Xiang, saying, "Brother Xiang, this is the first time we've met. This is my gift to you. I hope you like it." Song Xiang's smile immediately turned brighter. After receiving it, he said with a smile, "You're too polite, Brother Tan Xiao. Can I open it and have a look?" "Take a look." Tan Xiao nodded. Song Xiang swiftly opened the small gift box. When he saw the exquisitely carved jade token inside, he immediately said with a smile, "It's a very precious gift. Brother Tan Xiao must have spent a lot of money on it. My father said that he and Uncle Tang are sworn brothers, and we're also brothers. Since we're on the same side, let's not regard each other as outsiders in the future." "I know what I'm doing," Tan Xiao said with a smile. Before the three of them entered the courtyard, a woman came out from the gate. Her complexion was a bit pale with a sickly beauty. After seeing Tan Xiao, her eyes suddenly lit up and she said with a soft smile, "You're Big Brother Tang's son, Tan Xiao? I'm Guangwei's wife. You can call me Auntie." "Hello, Auntie, I'm Tan Xiao," replied Tan Xiao hurriedly. Wen Jing nodded with satisfaction and happily said, "We haven't seen Big Brother Tang for so many years. We originally thought that he had encountered a mishap. I didn't expect that he's still alive and has such a big son. Like father, like son. Your father was a great hero in the past, and your son is no worse than him. I'm very happy for Big Brother Tang." "My father once mentioned you to me, Auntie," said Tan Xiao. "He said that Uncle Song and the others met you when they were carrying out a mission abroad. He even told me that my father and Uncle Song were seriously injured at that time. If it wasn't for you taking good care of them, I'm afraid they wouldn't have survived." When Jing grabbed Tan Xiao's hand and affectionately said, "It's all in the past, so there's no need to mention it. That's right, your Uncle Song is still working outside and won't be back until the evening party. Let's go inside and have a seat first. Auntie will cook something delicious for you today." "All right. Thank you, Auntie." Tan Xiao turned around and took the prepared gift box from Mo. He handed it to Wen Jing and said, "This is the gift I brought for you, Auntie. I hope you like it." Chapter 945. With a bit of rebuke, Wen Jing said, "Kid, why did you bring a gift to your own home? Your Uncle Song and your father are closer than blood brothers. I also have a good relationship with your father, so this is also your home. I'll let it go this time, but don't bring any gifts in the future. Auntie will be very happy as long as you come." "I'll keep that in mind," Tan Xiao said with a smile. Shortly after they entered the courtyard and sat down in the villa's living room, Wen Jing personally served them fruits and snacks. She also busied herself making tea, causing the servants nearby to be dumbfounded and look at each other in dismay. Looking at his mother's busy figure, Song Xiang said with a smile, "Brother Tan Xiao, you have a big face. Usually, even if the Emperor of Heaven comes, my mom won't do anything herself. I'm a bit jealous seeing how you're treated." "That's Auntie's concern for me," Tan Xiao said with a smile. That's right, Auntie doesn't look too good. She should be sick, right? The smile on Song Xiang's face slowly receded. He glanced at Wenjing and bitterly said, yes, she's sick, and it's a serious disease that can't be cured. It's just that we're hiding it from her. Liver disease? Asked Tan Xiu. How did you know? Asked Song Xiang in astonishment. I have an identity in China, and I'm known as the young divine doctor in the Chinese medicine field, said Tan Xiu. I just observed Auntie's complexion. When she grabbed my hand, I put my finger on her pulse and diagnosed that she has a liver disease, and it's very serious. Song Xiang looked at Tan Xiu with disbelief. Only when Wenjing came over with tea did he recover from the shock and praised, Brother Tan Xiu is really amazing. You're really amazing. I know a lot about Chinese medicine, and those who can be called divine doctors are definitely very powerful figures in the Chinese medicine field. Even those old Chinese doctors who have been immersed in Chinese medicine for decades are not qualified to be called divine doctors. That's right, I heard that there's a very famous divine doctor in China called Gui Jianqiu. It's a pity that I've sent several groups of people to Huaxia, but none of them have found any trace of him. I've seen divine Dr. Gui Jianqiu before, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I've been with him for quite a few days. He's indeed a highly respected old divine doctor with superb medical skills. Also, I have his contact information. Song Xiang abruptly got up and hurriedly said, Brother Tan Xiu, quickly give me his contact number. I must find him. I must find him. Xiang, who are you looking for? Wenjing walked over with a cup of tea and asked in confusion. Song Xiang's expression slightly changed. He quickly winked at Tan Xiu and then said with a dry smile, Mom, it's a friend I know. I lost contact with him for a long time. I didn't expect that Brother Tan Xiu and Tan Xiu would also know him and even have his contact information. Wenjing looked at Tan Xiu and asked, Is that so? Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and didn't answer Wenjing's question. Instead, he said with a smile, Auntie, I can see that you're in poor health and should be sick. I have some Chinese medical skills, so how about I help you treat it? I don't dare to say that I can cure you 100%, but I'm 99% sure. Bullshit. A discordant voice came from the door as a young man in a white t-shirt, bell-bottom jeans, a straw hat, and a pair of slippers came in. With a bit of anger on his face, he came to the front of Tan Xiu and loudly said, Where the hell did you come from, brat? How dare you talk nonsense in my house? You even know Chinese medicine? Do you even know what Chinese medicine is? Tan Xiu looked at him and immediately guessed his identity. He wasn't angry at all and instead smiled and said, You're Song Yang, right? I'm Tan Xiu. It's nice to meet you. Song Yang rolled his eyes. He then raised his nostrils and disdainfully said, I never shake hands with any Tom, Dick, or Harry, nor will I feign civility with anyone I don't like. I've heard about Uncle Tang and I admire him very much. But you don't flatter yourself and hope that I'll look up to you. Shut up. Shut up. Wenjing and Song Xiang shouted at the same time. Tan Xiu smiled and waved his hand. He then looked at the disdainful Song Yang and smilingly said, You seem to be hostile to me, no? Can you tell me why? Who do you think you are? Why should I tell you? Song Yang sneered. I thought Uncle Tang was a hero and your son must be a good one. But I didn't expect that you're just a guy who talks nonsense and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Talking nonsense? Doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? Tan Xiu instantly understood why Song Yang was hostile to him. It was likely that he had just taken the initiative to treat his aunt, Wenjing, which made Song Yang dissatisfied. It was no wonder that he had just learned from Song Xiang that they had been hiding his mother's illness from him. It was only natural that he would be angry when he suddenly brought up this topic. After figuring it out, Tan Xiu no longer paid attention to Song Yang. He looked at Wenjing and said, Auntie, you may not know what disease you have, but your body often hurts, right? Wenjing looked at her two sons and was silent for more than 10 seconds. Then she bitterly shook her head and sighed, Actually, I know about my illness. They thought that they could hide it from me, but I've long known that I have liver cancer and it's already in the middle or late stage. What are you talking about, Mom? Song Xiang hurriedly asked. How did you get liver cancer? It's nothing like that. Song Yang fiercely glared at Tan Xiao and then said, Don't let your imagination run wild, Mom. What cancer? You're just suffering from a minor illness now, but you'll definitely live to a ripe old age in the future. As for that guy surnamed Tang, I don't think he's a good person. Don't listen to his nonsense. I guarantee that everything he said before was just to fool you. When Jing's face turned cold and she reprimanded him, What's wrong with you, Song Yang? What did Tan Xiao do to offend you? Why do you always pick on him? I don't care if he can cure my illness or not. At least he's filial piety. Mom, what the hell does he know about Chinese medicine? Song Yang was unconvinced. Those who know Chinese medicine are all old Chinese doctors with real talents. It's ridiculous that he wants to make up the numbers at such a young age. Anyway, I think he can deceive others, but he can't deceive me. Tan Xiao looked at Song Yang and said, I can understand your feelings, but don't be too extreme in your thinking. As for whether I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner or not, let me give it a try and you'll know, won't you? Auntie may not know how serious her illness is, but you should be clear about it, right? Since it's already this serious, why don't I give it a try? If I happen to cure her, it should be something worth celebrating, right? Song Yang opened his mouth, but he suddenly felt that his mute acupoint was suddenly numb, and he couldn't make any sound. Then, his body trembled a few times, and he felt that several other parts of his body were also numb. Then, his whole body was out of his control. Damn it, what the hell is going on? Why can't I speak? Why can't I move? What's going on? What happened to my numb body just now? Did someone hit my acupoint? Song Yang's eyes rolled around. Although his eyes were full of eagerness, he still tried to regain his freedom. It was a pity that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape. Tan Xiao said, Auntie, let's find a quiet room. You must trust me, just like how you trusted my father and Uncle Song. Alright. When Jing looked at the 3 children in front of her and secretly sighed. She had gone to the hospital to have a checkup since she felt unwell, and she was the one who brought the results alone. The cancer results were written very clearly, and her own symptoms were all symptoms that a patient with liver cancer should have. However, just like her second son, Song Yang, she didn't believe that Tan Xiao could cure her liver cancer. However, it was Tan Xiao's first visit to her home, and his intention to treat her was good. Therefore, she didn't want to refuse Tan Xiao. She didn't even notice her son's abnormality and took Tan Xiao to the massage room at the end of the corridor. Song Xiang was aware of his brother's abnormality, but he was more worried about his mother, When his mother and Tan Xiao were about to enter the massage room, Song Xiang grabbed Tan Xiao's arm and said in a low voice, You guessed it right, Brother Tan Xiao. My mother has cancer, and it's liver cancer. Her condition is actually very serious, and it's already in the middle and late stages. It's almost impossible to cure her with the current medical level. Don't act recklessly. It's okay to give up if there's no other way. At the very least, she's still alive now. Tan Xiao slowly nodded and said, Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. They entered the room. Tan Xiao gestured to Song Xiang to stop him from entering and closed the door from the inside. He then turned to Wen Jing and said with a faint smile, Do you want to enjoy it, Auntie? Enjoy how? Asked Wen Jing curiously. Massage is also a Chinese medicine method. Tan Xiao smiled. Actually, I can guess that you don't have much confidence in my Chinese medicine skills. The reason why you agreed to let me treat you is because you don't want to refuse me and make me feel embarrassed. Wen Jing looked at Tan Xiao in a daze. She suddenly realized that this child was actually smarter than she had imagined. He would probably be very powerful in the future. Unfortunately, she had cancer, and it was an incurable late-stage liver cancer. Otherwise, she really wanted to see how great this child's achievements would be in the future, and how big of a sensation he could create. Come on. Let Auntie witness our family's Tan Xiao's ability. If your massage level is really high, then Auntie will definitely prepare some good dishes for you to eat and drink to your heart's content, said Wen Jing with a smile while lying on the massage bed. Okay. Tan Xiao nodded with a smile. Chapter 946. Tan Xiao quietly looked at Wenjing, who was lying in front of him. He gently raised his hands, and as the chaotic power silently surged out of his palms, it flowed on the surface of his palms like flowing water. Massage could balance yin and yang, harmonize yin and wei, unblock meridians, and move joints. It could adjust the nervous and immune functions, strengthen the internal organs, and also provide health care and beauty to the skin. Of course, the most important thing was to promote blood circulation, eliminate fatigue, and improve exercise ability. When Jing's bodily functions were seriously declining, and the cells in her body were constantly being devoured and assimilated by cancer cells, her physical fitness was very poor. Before treating her, the best way was to improve her physique, so that her body could withstand his treatment. Massage was a variety of techniques used in the process of massage to stimulate the meridians, acupoints, or specific parts of the human body. There were more than 100 techniques, but there were 4 most common ones. They were mainly pressing, such as pressing, pointing, holding, and pinching, some mainly rubbing, such as pushing, rubbing, and so on, some mainly vibrating the limbs, such as beating, shaking, and so on, and some mainly moving the joints of the limbs, such as shaking, pulling, and stretching. Tan Xiao's massage technique was not a single technique, but a combination of dozens of massage techniques, forming a unique massage technique. Regardless of the duration of the massage, the maintained movements and strength, they were constantly changing according to the various techniques. Waist. After Tan Xiao finished massaging these parts, he found that Wenjing was drowsy, and the trace of pain that was hard to hide between her eyebrows had gradually disappeared. As a chaotic power was released, it instantly wrapped around Wenjing's limbs and waist, lifting her more than 10 centimeters high. She quickly turned over and lay on the massage bed. Feet, legs, buttocks, waist, back, arms, neck, and head. Tan Xiao secretly determined the meridians and determined the main acupoints. He controlled the strength very well, and under the secret nourishment of the chaotic power, the drowsy Wenjing was deeply immersed in this indescribably comfortable feeling. She did not even realize that as Tan Xiao continued to massage, she had already involuntarily let out a soft moan. Half an hour later, Tan Xiao stopped massaging and took out the set of silver needles from his spatial ring. Even through her clothes, the silver needles still accurately pierced into several important acupuncture points on Wenjing's body. Drawing qi, nourishing blood. Tan Xiao used the silver needles to send strands of chaotic force into Wenjing's acupoints. After the acupuncture was done, his fingers grasped Wenjing's pulse, and a steady flow of chaotic force entered Wenjing's meridians. The human body was like a net. The power was like a thread. Tens of thousands of strands of primal chaos force weaved through the meridian network and spread to Wenjing's limbs and organs. The washing process was to remove the cancer cells from Wenjing's body and slowly expel them from the body. Because Wenjing's physique was too weak, even though Tan Xiao had put in a lot of effort, he still did not dare to use too much force. He could only slowly remove it, wash it bit by bit, and expel it. Time fleeted by. Outside the massage room's door, Song Xiang, who was waiting anxiously, stopped his younger brother, Song Yang, several times. He heard from his father that Tan Xiao was a capable young man. Although he didn't believe that Tan Xiao could cure his mother's cancer, he still kept his composure. "Brother, don't stop me again and I'll get angry with you." Song Yang angrily glared at Song Xiang and shouted. "You must remember this, Song Yang," said Song Xiang in a deep voice. "Nothing is too strange in this vast world, and there are countless eccentric people. We don't know much about Tan Xiao, and no one can guarantee that he's one of those eccentric people. You're well aware of our mother's illness. You must try anything even if you fail again and again. That surnamed Tang is a liar. Have you ever seen a Chinese medicine practitioner so young?" Song Yang angrily retorted. "I don't think he has any other ability other than bragging." Song Xiang sneered. "Whether he has any ability or not is not something we can conclude. In my opinion, he's much better than you in some aspects." Song Yang clenched his fists and angrily asked, "Then tell me, which aspect is he better than me in?" If I remember correctly, Father once told me about Tan Xiu's identity. He's the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation in China, and the company he founded himself. He didn't use any power or connections of the Tang family. Tell me, do you have the ability to found a company like the magnificent Tang Corporation with your own ability? Do you think you can earn hundreds of millions of yuan in such a short time? Song Yang's angry expression froze. He opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. It wasn't that he didn't know anything about Tan Xiu. At the very least, he knew about the magnificent Tang Corporation and Tan Xiu's founder. Tan Xiu also has another identity. He's called the young divine doctor of Chinese medicine by the people of China, said Song Xiang with a solemn expression. I don't know whether it's true or not, but you can check it on the internet. If he's really famous, I'm sure it'll be reported on the internet. Young divine doctor? Song Yang sneered and quickly took out his smartphone to quickly search for the term, young divine doctor Tan Xiu. 10 seconds later, the sneer on his face froze and his eyes turned round, nearly popping out of their sockets. What's wrong? Song Xiang looked at Song Yang's expression in confusion. He reached out and grabbed the phone from Song Yang's hand. After scrolling through the screen for more than 10 seconds, his pupils suddenly shrank and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. It was because there were too many reports about Tang Xiu on the internet. In particular, Tang Xiu's identity as a divine doctor who treated patients and saved people was even more exaggerated. It was as though Bian Ke had been reborn and Hua Tuo had come back to life. Song Yang's voice sounded a bit strange as he murmured, could it be that what's reported on the internet is true? He really knows Chinese medicine? But how is this possible? Aside from being shocked, there was also a bit of surprise in Song Xiang's eyes as he said in a deep voice, I told you that the world is unpredictable and we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Don't tell me you've forgotten the saying that you can't judge a book by its cover? He's from China, a country with a population of more than 1 billion people. There are countless hidden dragons and crouching tigers, as well as countless eccentric people. Perhaps Tang Xiu has an extraordinary talent in Chinese medicine. Who knows? Song Yang snatched his phone back and scrolled through the information he had found. After a long time, he let out a sigh of relief. At this time, he was no longer angry. Instead, he let out a dry smile and said with a bit of embarrassment, Big brother, maybe you're right. It was me who looked down on you. Song Xiang let out a smile and nodded. Regardless of whether Tang Xiu can cure our mom or not, you must apologize to him after his treatment is over. Not to mention that Tan Xiu has good intentions, he's Uncle Tang's son, so we can't have a conflict with him. I'll be more polite to him in the future, said Song Yang. But if he can really cure our mom, let alone apologizing to him face to face, I'll even give him my heart. But if he can't cure our mom, I'll never apologize to him. Song Xiang frowned and was about to speak when his nose suddenly twitched a few times. He then turned to look at the other end of the corridor and asked with a confused expression, Where's the stench coming from? Song Yang also sniffed and then pointed to the massage room's door, saying, The stench seems to be coming from here. That's strange. The servants usually clean the massage room very well, and there's nothing rotten inside. How can there be a stench here? Song Xiang and Song Yang exchanged glances. Their expressions suddenly changed as they dashed to the door almost at the same time and forcefully pushed it open. Cough, cough. The stench rushed to their faces, catching the two brothers off guard and causing them to cough at the same time. Standing next to the massage bed, Tan Xiu turned his head and saw Song Xiang and Song Yang coming in. A smile immediately appeared on the corner of his mouth when he saw the brothers' distressed appearance and said, I told you not to come in, but you didn't listen to me. Are you worried about my treatment? Song Xiang stopped coughing and endured the nausea churning in his stomach. His eyes moved from Tan Xiu to his mother on the massage bed. He saw with his own eyes that his mother's clothes were soaked and her exposed skin was black and sticky, covered with a thick layer of grayish-black substance. The strong stench came from that grayish-black substance. Brother Tan Xiu, how's my mom? The treatment is going well, but it's not over yet, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You two brothers can continue to stay here and watch if you don't feel the stench in this room. but remember not to disturb my treatment. Of course, you can leave the room immediately if you can't stand the smell inside and wait outside. Song Yang pinched his nostrils and looked at the calm expression on Tan Xiu's face. A strong admiration was born inside his heart. The pungent stench in the room made him feel like he couldn't stay here for even a minute. Yet, Tan Xiu seemed to be fine. This was something he couldn't compare with. "You're awesome." Song Yang gave a thumbs up with his other hand and then turned to rush out of the room. Song Xiang held his breath, but the stench was still drilling into his nostrils. He wanted to stay here and watch Tan Xiu treat his mother, but the pungent stench was a bit irritating to his eyes, so he had no choice but to withdraw. Before he left, he hurriedly said, "Thank you, Brother Tan Xiu. My mom's treatment depends on you." Tan Xiu waved his hand and smilingly said, "You don't have to be so polite. I'll do my best. Remember to close the door after you go out and don't let anyone in easily. I'm afraid of being disturbed during the treatment." "All right," Song Xiang answered without hesitation and closed the door behind him. Chapter 947. In the corridor. Song Xiang's eyes flickered as he looked at the door of the massage room. Aside from admiration, he also felt a strong sense of gratefulness. Regardless of whether Tan Xiu could cure his mother or not, he was still grateful to Tan Xiu. After all, Tan Xiu was able to stay in the room with such a strong stench. "I'm convinced, brother." Song Yang panted heavily and looked at the door of the massage room with a bit of awe in his eyes. Song Xiang laughed loudly and said, "Now you're convinced? It would be a miracle if we could stay inside that stinky room for a few minutes. But Brother Tang is as if nothing happened to him. Just based on this point alone, it's enough for us to think highly of him." Song Yang nodded. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something and curiously asked, "What's going on inside, brother? Also, the grayish-black substance on Mom's body isn't a special ointment developed by Tan Xiu, is it?" "It should be." Song Xiang nodded. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour passed. More than an hour passed. Song Xiang and Song Yang were waiting outside the massage room when Song Guangwei hurried back from outside. When he saw his two sons standing at the door of the massage room, he slightly frowned and quickly asked, "Where's Tan Xiu? What are you doing here? Also, what's with this stench?" "Dad, Tan Xiu is treating Mom in the massage room," said Song Xiang. "This stench is coming from the massage room. It seems to be from some ointment used by Tan Xiu." Song Guangwei stared blankly and suddenly recalled Tan Xiu's identity as the young divine doctor. He immediately patted his forehead and said with annoyance, "Why didn't I think of it before? Tan Xiu is known as the young divine doctor of Chinese medicine in China. His medical skills should be very good. If he can really cure your mother's illness, that'll be great." Song Xiang poured cold water on him and said, "Dad, don't be so optimistic. Even if Tan Xiu is a miracle-working doctor in the traditional Chinese medicine circle of Huaxia, I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to cure my mother. After all, cancer was not as easy to treat as other diseases. With the current medical standards, she had not heard of any hospitals and doctors who could cure patients in the middle and later stages of liver cancer. Unless a miracle happens." Song Guangwei's expression stiffened and he nodded solemnly. Finally, as the door was opened by Tan Xiu from the inside, Song Guangwei, Song Xiang, and Song Yang immediately looked at him. Looking at Tan Xiu's slightly tired face, Song Guangwei hurriedly asked, "Tan Xiu, how's your aunt? Is your treatment effective?" Tan Xiu smiled and said, "Uncle Song, don't worry. I've already cleared 2/3 of the cancer cells in my aunt's body. Only 1/3 is left. I'll stay in Saipan tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. I'll treat her once a day for these 2 days, and I should be able to clear all the cancer cells in her body." "What did you say?" Song Guangwei's body shook and he involuntarily exclaimed. Song Xiang and Song Yang were tongue-tied and instantly petrified. They looked at Tan Xiu in shock and were speechless for a long time. "Cancer is actually not a serious disease for me," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I've also cured some patients in the middle and later stages of cancer, and they are all healthy now. Even if they can't live to 100 years old, They can still live for a few more decades. Song Guangwei grabbed Tan Xiu's arm and asked with a trembling voice, "Really, really? Can you really remove all the cancer cells in your aunt's body? Can you really cure her completely?" "It's true." Tan Xiu could feel Song Guangwei's excitement and replied with a faint smile. Song Guangwei released Tan Xiu and raised his fists excitedly. He fiercely punched the air a few times and then said with a flushed face, "That's great. That's great. It's all my fault. Had I asked you for help earlier, I'm afraid your aunt's cancer would have been cured long ago. Thank you, Tan Xiu. Thank you so much." Tan Xiu forced a smile and said, "Uncle Song, I know you're happy, but you don't have to be so polite with me. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, and it's my duty to treat patients and save people. Besides, we're like family to each other. Aunt has cancer, and if I don't treat her after knowing it, I'm afraid my dad will break my legs if he finds out. We're family, so I won't be polite with you. By the way, can I go in and see your aunt?" asked Song Guang. Tan Xiu said with a strange expression, "Of course you can. But Uncle Song, you have to be mentally prepared." Song Guangwei was stunned and asked, "Mentally prepared for what?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I removed the cancer cells from my aunt's body and stuck them to the surface of her body. This stench is emitted by those cancer cells. I think you're the most suitable person to clean my aunt's body, but you have to endure the stench." At the side, Song Yang exclaimed, "What did you say, Tan Xiu? The black and gray substance on my mother's body isn't the ointment you concocted? It's the cancer cell impurities discharged from my mother's body?" Tan Xiu nodded and said with a smile, "That's right. I didn't use any ointment at all. I just used acupuncture to stimulate her acupoints and stimulate her body's potential. Then I controlled and found those cancer cells and forced them out of her body." Song Yang was dumbfounded, and Song Xiang also turned into a stone statue. The two brothers looked at Tan Xiu as if they were looking at a monster. Not a purebred monster on earth, but a super monster from the sky. The two brothers had heard countless magical stories and seen some bizarre things, but they had never encountered such an unimaginable situation. Half an hour later, when Song Guangwei helped Wenjing out of the massage room, he had already cleaned her up in the bathroom. The stench had completely dissipated, and the smell of shower gel wafted from Wenjing's body. "Thank you, Tan Xiu." The way Wenjing looked at Tan Xiu was much gentler than before. It was as if she was looking at her own child, full of love and satisfaction. Tan Xiu stepped forward and held Wenjing's arm, saying with a smile, "We're a family, Auntie. This is what I should do." Wenjing heavily nodded and said, "Good boy. You're really a good boy. Auntie won't be polite with you. I feel a bit weak now, but the pain caused by the cancer cells is gone. I can even clearly feel that the longer I stay here, the more comfortable and warm my body feels, just like when I'm next to a heater." "Your body will indeed feel weak for the time being," said Tan Xiu. "That's because too many cancer cell impurities have been discharged from your body. In fact, the cancer cell impurities are also a kind of energy, which is equivalent to giving you more energy in your body. However, this energy is not good for you, and it's harmful instead. Auntie, you should rest for a while and drink some nutritious hot porridge. I'll write a prescription later, and you'll have a good sleep after taking it. You'll be full of energy tomorrow." "All right, but I need to cook for you before I rest," said Wenjing with a smile. Tan Xiu quickly said, "Your body is too weak now, Auntie. Let's forget about cooking." Song Guangwei also nodded and said, "Yeah. Tan Xiu will feel your kindness, but your body is more important. It won't be too late to show Tan Xiu your cooking skills after you get better tomorrow." Wenjing stubbornly shook her head and said, "I like this boy very much. That's why I must cook for him when he comes to our house for the first time." "All right. Don't you have 2 bottles of good wine? Hurry up and take them out. The 4 of you will have a good drink tonight." "Sorry." Song Guangwei knew his wife's character. Even 8 bulls couldn't pull her back when she was stubborn. Upon seeing this, Tan Xiu no longer insisted and winked at Song Xiang. The two of them then helped Wenjing to the kitchen to help her. In the living room, Song Yang stared blankly at his mother and Tan Xiu, who disappeared at the kitchen door. When he turned to look at his father, Song Guangwei, he lowered his voice and asked, "Do you really believe what Tan Xiao said, Dad? Can he really cure my mom?" Song Guangwei was silent for a moment. Then he lowered his voice and said, "I'll tell you something, brat. But you must keep it to yourself. If there's anyone in this world who can cure your mom's cancer, it's probably Tan Xiao. He's a cultivator. You can check what kind of existence a cultivator is on the internet. But you must never tell anyone else about what I just told you." A cultivator. Song Yang nodded and said in a low voice, "I don't need to check the information to know what kind of existence a cultivator is, Dad. But aren't they the legendary immortals? Are there really such people in this world?" "Yes, I know about them," said Song Guangwei seriously. The expression in Song Yang's eyes changed in an instant. When he looked at the kitchen again, his eyes were full of passion, mixed with a faint desire hidden in the deepest part of his heart. In the legends, cultivators could summon the wind and summon the rain, move the stars, fly in the sky, and live for hundreds and thousands of years. If Tang Xiu was really a cultivator, and if he really had this kind of ability, then he would have to learn from him no matter what. After the meal, when Jing went back to her bedroom to rest, while Song Guangwei took Tan Xiu, Song Xiang, and Song Yang to the study on the second floor. Song Yang attentively brewed a pot of tea and brought it to Tan Xiu. He poured a cup and handed it to Tan Xiu and solemnly said, "Big brother Tang, you're 2 years older than me according to the year of our birth, so I should address you as big brother. I hope you don't stoop to the same level as me before." Tan Xiu faintly smiled and took the cup of tea, saying, "We're brothers, so I won't take it to heart." "Big brother Tang is really a prime minister with a big heart and a broad mind," said Song Yang smilingly. "We're brothers, so we must get closer in the future." "Definitely." Tan Xiu smiled. Song Guangwei was unaware of the small conflict between Tan Xiu and Song Yang, so he smilingly said, "You brothers must get closer in the future. Big brother Tang and I are old, and the world will be yours in the future. I hope to see you support each other and make progress together in the future." Chapter 948. A faint aroma of tea permeated the study. After chatting for a while, Tang Xiu got down to business. "Uncle Song, you've been targeted by the Dark Wind organization. Their informants have also appeared in Tom Reggie's place. If my guess is correct, the Darkwind's people must have found us the last time we met." Song Guangwei's expression changed and he said with a look of dread, "The world's largest intelligence organization, the Darkwind? Rumor has it that they're everywhere and monitor every movement in every corner of the world. Why are they targeting us, Tan Xiu?" "It should be because of your and Tom Reggie's identity," said Tan Xiu. "The Darkwind's people wouldn't deliberately investigate you if you're an ordinary person, but you're the number 2 person in Saipan, and Tom Reggie is a powerful and influential person. As the confidant of the number 1 person, your meeting will naturally attract the Darkwind's attention. Could it be that old Karst found some clues and asked the Darkwind's intelligence personnel to investigate us?" asked Song Guangwei worriedly. "I can't rule out this possibility, but the probability is very small," said Tan Xiu. "I've decided to visit the Darkwind's branch in Saipan tonight to confirm this result. As for you and Tom Reggie, don't meet for the time being. Wait until I pull out the Darkwind's mole in Saipan, then you can contact each other again. Also, draw up a plan as soon as possible to get rid of Karst as soon as possible. Only then can you become the most powerful man in Saipan. It'll be much more convenient for you to do things in the future." As a matter of fact, Tan Xiu had another idea in mind. Saipan was the closest land to Nine Dragons Island and could be regarded as the gateway to Nine Dragons Island. Only by making the ruler of this island one of his own could the secret of Nine Dragons Island be better guaranteed in the future. Therefore, he needed to push Song Guangwei to the highest position in Saipan as soon as possible. Anyone who tried to stop him would be his enemy. "I'll draw up an action plan with Tom Reggie as soon as possible," said Song Guangwei. "The best way to get rid of Karst is to get rid of him without arousing suspicion," said Song Guangwei. "Let's make it an accident, then," said Tan Xiu. "If it's inconvenient for you to do it, then I'll send my men to do it perfectly. As for the aftermath, I'll leave it to you." Alright, but you must be careful, Song Guanghui reminded. In the evening, after Tan Xiu left Jinla Mansion, Jin Shi, who had been hiding in the dark, emerged from a dark corner and quickly came to Tan Xiu. It's over? Tan Xiu asked. Jin Shi nodded and said, there are 3 of them in total. I've dealt with them all. Now that it's settled, let's head straight to the Dark Wind branch in Saipan, said Tan Xiu. Remember, don't let anyone from the Dark Wind escape tonight. Otherwise, we'll be exposed and attract unnecessary trouble. Yes. Jin Shi respectfully said. Tan Xiu still had some concerns about the Dark Wind organization. It was the largest intelligence agency in the world, with more than 1 million people in total. It was even possible to reach a terrifying number of tens of millions. With such a large number of people, who knew how many powerful characters were hidden among them? Given the everlasting feast hall strength, they were naturally not afraid of the Dark Wind organization. Even if Tan Xiu brought his men to the Dark Wind's headquarters, he could still slaughter most of its top executives. However, cutting the grass was difficult to pull out the roots. If he couldn't completely destroy the Dark Wind organization, he was bound to face the Dark Wind's crazy retaliation in the future. He wasn't afraid of it, but his friends and family would be in danger. Furthermore, martial strength was indeed paramount in this world, but there was another kind of danger that was stronger than personal cultivation and martial strength, terrifying firearms and explosives. For example, bombs, missiles, nuclear bombs, and other weapons. With such a huge intelligence agency like the Dark Wind, it was very likely that they had their own exclusive armed forces. Even he wouldn't be able to resist in case the Dark Wind's top executives were to use such a terrifying weapon as a nuclear warhead. Coastal area. More than a dozen Western-style villas were located in a mountain forest in Saipan. All of them were owned by the Dark Wind organization, and the armed forces stationed here numbered more than 100 people. In a villa in the middle of the area, Yao Guchuan was quietly sitting on the sofa. The room was dark, but his eyes were particularly bright, and there was even a murderous glint in them. 3 photos were placed on the coffee table in front of him. They were Tan Xiu, Song Guanghui, and Tom Reggie respectively. Next to the photos was a mobile phone. Ring, ring, ring. The phone's ringtone sounded, and the dim light from the screen brought a bit of light to the dark room. Yao Guchuan quickly grabbed the phone and pressed the answer button. After that, he asked in a deep voice, "How is it? Have you investigated it?" "Not yet, but we have found something else." "What did you find?" Tan Xiu went to Jinla Mansion today to visit Sen Hui. Our men are still monitoring the vicinity of Jinla Mansion, but they haven't received any news of Tan Xiu's departure. Got it. Yao Guchuan hung up the phone with a glint in his eyes. He hated Tan Xiu to the core, and he couldn't wait to hack Tan Xiu into 1,000 pieces. Therefore, he accidentally discovered Tan Xiu's figure after the Darkwind's intel operatives noticed that Song Guanghui and Tom Reggie were in contact. Therefore, he deduced that there was an unspeakable secret between Song Guanghui and Tom Reggie. And Tan Xiu's role in it was very likely to be very important. Therefore, he had sent all the Darkwind operatives in Saipan to investigate the relationship between Tan Xiu, Song Guanghui, and Tom Reggie. If I didn't know about it, I would have thought that there's an assassin hiding here. As the lights in the room suddenly lit up, Tan Xiu and Tang Guang appeared in front of Yao Guchuan. Tan Xiu was sitting opposite Yao Guchuan with his legs crossed and a smile on his handsome face. "You!" Yao Guchuan abruptly jumped up from the sofa. Others might not know how terrifying Tan Xiu was, but he was perfectly aware of it. Someone who could kill that Amur tiger by himself was absolutely ridiculously powerful. But no matter how powerful he was, how could he appear here without a trace? How could he appear in front of him? "You seem to be shocked," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. Yao Guchuan stared at Tan Xiu with vigilance and asked in a deep voice, "How did you get in here?" "There are many guards here, and all kinds of surveillance cameras are installed without leaving any blind spots. It's impossible for you to come in without being discovered by my men." "You think too highly of your men, don't you?" Tan Xiu chuckled. "They're just a bunch of trash in my opinion. It's ridiculous to use them to find my whereabouts. Anyways, let's cut the crap. I seem to be one of the photos on the coffee table in front of you, no? Yao Guchuan's expression changed. He squinted and said, "You can come here, Tan Xiu, so I'm afraid you've guessed my identity. That's right, I'm the chief supervisor of the Darkwind Saipan branch. Tell me your purpose in coming here." Purpose? Tan Xiu chuckled. "It's very simple. I need information from you." Yao Guchuan secretly felt relieved inwardly and said in a deep voice, "What information do you want to buy? Our Darkwind organization's purpose is very clear. As long as the price is high enough, we can even find out the sleeping posture of the M country's president." Tan Xiu lit a cigarette and waved. "I'm not interested in the sleeping posture of the M country's president, but I'm quite interested in you. To be exact, I'm quite interested in your Darkwind organization." "I don't get what you mean," said Yao Guchuan with a frown. "You're just pretending to be confused, aren't you?" Tan Xiu sneered. "You don't get what I mean. Why did your Darkwind organization specifically investigate me, Song Guangwei, and Tom Reggie? You even sent people to spy on Tom and Song Guangwei in secret. What's your purpose?" Yao Guchuan was silent for a moment and then said, "It's my duty. Song Guangwei and Tom Reggie have unusual identities, so there's a good chance that someone wants to buy information about them. Since it's information that can make me rich, I naturally won't let it go." Tan Xiu gave him a thumbs up and praised, "You have a good eye and a good business mind. If I hadn't come here tonight, I'm afraid your position in the Darkwind organization would have been higher in the future." "Thanks for the praise," said Yao Guchuan. "Just tell me what kind of information you need if you're here to buy information. But if you're here to make trouble, even if you're very strong and even the Amur tiger is no match for you, I'm afraid you won't get much of an advantage from us since we have a lot of manpower here." Tan Xiu clapped his hands and said with satisfaction, "I like it when you say such words. In order to prove you wrong, I have to do something." "What do you want to do?" asked Yao Guchuan hurriedly. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and shouted, "Jin, sure, do it." Yao Guchuan's expression drastically changed and he shouted, "Tan Xiu, our Darkwind organization has no enmity with you. We just investigated some information about you. Why do you want to kill us? Aren't you afraid of becoming mortal enemies with our organization?" Tang Guang instantly appeared in front of Yao Guchuan and grabbed his neck, lifting him up from the ground and sneered, "Does my boss care about becoming a mortal enemy of your Darkwind organization? What the hell is your Darkwind organization? My boss has the ability to completely destroy your organization if he wants to." "Don't scare this guy, Guang," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I won't be able to get any valuable information from him if you scare him to death." Tang Guang slightly bowed and casually threw Yao Guchuan to the ground and returned to stand behind Tan Xiu. "What's your name?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. Yao Guchuan was silent for a moment and answered, "Guchuan." Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and mocked, "Guchuan is just your name. What I want to know is your surname. Don't try to play tricks. We can find your Darkwind branch, so we naturally know the name of the person in charge of your organization. Now, I suspect that my inference is correct, Mr. Yao. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.